Chapter 31:15. Lu Yin smiled. Of course. This junior hopes to reach the primordial realm. Since you're here, this junior has to do his best. It's good that you understand. If you complete this task well, I will consider accepting you as a disciple. By the way, have you heard of the Eternals? Lu Yin's eyes flashed. Of course. What do you think? Enemies of the human race. What do you think? Lu Yin did not know what this person meant. Was this person from the Eternals or the human race? Logically speaking, this person should be from the Eternals since Lu Yin was a human. This person had treated him with such an attitude and even asked him to disguise himself as someone from the Lu family, so he had to be dealing with someone from the Lu family. However, if this person was not from the Eternals, then Lu Yin would be in trouble if he answered incorrectly. Lu Yin was not afraid that this person would attack him, as he could still fight back and escape. However, this person had asked him to disguise himself as a descendant of the Lu family, so Lu Yin wanted to see who he was dealing with. This junior only wants to reach the primordial realm, Lu Yin replied. The person fell silent for a moment. You're quite considerate. However, I admire people like you. Only by being unscrupulous can you get what you want. Lu Yin exhaled. Senior is right. May I know your name? With a boom, a general appointment platform appeared in front of Lu Yin. Lu Yin stared at it. General appointment platform? Oh, it was fake. This person had forged it. Look carefully. I'll give you some time to familiarize yourself with it. This is your general appointment platform. Use it as an innate gift. I'll remember it even in my dreams. Your name is Lu Yin and you're a descendant of the Lu family. Do you remember? This junior definitely remembers. My name is Lu Yin and I'm a descendant of the Lu family. Who is your ancestor? Wu Yuan. What else? Lu Tianyi. What is the most tragic thing that has ever happened to your Lu family? Ancestor Lu Yuan's son died. The ancestor could not reverse the river of time to save him because the progenitor did not allow it. Then what is the most unpleasant thing that has ever happened to your Lu family? Someone called Qing Luo Jiantian injured Lu Tianyi, forcing the family to cultivate the primordial scripture to make up for the lack of spiritual force. There's another lunatic in the Lu clan. He's Lu Yuan's grandson. Remember this, lunatic Lu is a taboo in the Lu clan. Lu Yin was very confident. This junior is Lu Yin, so of course I know. Patriarch Lu Yuan and Patriarch Lu Tianyi are both my patriarchs and I've met them before. Not bad. The fog dissipated and Lu Yin walked towards the forest. It had been a long time since that person had threatened him with Zhu Hua, and he had been constantly familiarizing himself with the Lu family's history. It had to be said that there were some things that he did not know, and he had never expected to be forced to learn about them by an outsider. What that person wanted him to do was to enter the forest and find a woman. The closer he was to that woman, the better. As for why he was pretending to be a descendant of the Lu family, that person didn't tell Lu Yin. Lu Yin carefully walked through the forest. A wooden house loomed in the distance, but it wasn't the same one he had seen before. This one was much further away. A small path, a bamboo forest surrounded by mist. No matter how one looked at it, it was a quiet and elegant place. He subconsciously touched the bamboo. What kind of bamboo could withstand the corrosion of the time mist? He didn't manage to figure out anything. Lu Yin continued walking towards the wooden house. Not long after, he saw a bamboo fence. There were green grasses that swayed in the wind, emitting a faint green glow. It was very comfortable to look at. There was a beautiful woman dressed in plain clothes walking among the grasses with a faint smile on her face. She didn't wear any makeup and gave off an elegant feeling, like the grasses in the forest, untainted by dust. The smile on her face made Lu Yin feel even more comfortable. She wasn't an absolute beauty, but she was definitely the type that made people feel the most comfortable. It was as if they had returned to nature. Lu Yin stood outside the bamboo fence and watched the woman plant the grasses. Not long after, she raised her head and looked at him. Lu Yin bowed. Junior Lu Yin greets senior. The woman sized him up. How did you get here? I found this mirage domain by collecting stones. Your surname is Lu? Yes. It's fake. Lu Yin was speechless. Real. The woman smiled and pointed at Lu Yin's shoulder. You still have Zhu Hua's flame on your shoulder. Lu Yin blinked. Didn't that person say that he couldn't see it? He thought that I couldn't see, but this is my territory. How could I not see? He underestimated me too much. However, I purposely made him think that I couldn't see, said the woman. After saying that, she lowered her head and continued to plant the grass. Lu Yin was helpless. I've made a fool of myself. She sighed. I should be the one apologizing. I've implicated you, or else you wouldn't have been killed by him. I'm sorry, but I can't help you get rid of Zhu Hua's flame. Lu Yin was curious. Senior, who are you? And who is that person? There was a wooden chair inside the fence and she sat down. Just stay outside. He can't do anything to me at this distance, but it might not be the case if he gets any closer. Lu Yin nodded and sat down by himself. He looked at the woman from across the bamboo fence. The one controlling you is called Fengbua, a sinner of the human race. As for me, I am Hongyan Mavis. Lu Yin's expression changed and he exclaimed, Ancestor of the Mavis family? Hongyan Mavis? Hongyan Mavis looked at Lu Yin. I can see the shock in your eyes. He didn't tell you my identity? Or is your disguise too good? Lu Yin stared at her in shock. Are you really Hongyan Mavis? Ancestor of the Mavis family? Hongyan Mavis smiled. Ancestor makes me sound old. I've only lived a little longer. What about you? What's your name? Lu Yin hadn't expected to meet one of the 6 paths of the 3 realms in the Mirage domain, the ancestor of the second continent, Hongyan Mavis. He had only heard about her from ancestor Lu Tianyi, but no one knew where she was. Many believed that she had been destroyed along with the second continent and died in the universe. He hadn't expected to meet her here. Lu Yin was excited. Ancestor of the Mavis family, one of the 6 paths of the 3 realms. She was a powerful person and it was impossible to know much about her through the history of the Mavis family. In the Genesis space, the only ones who truly understood her were the Lu family. Senior, why are you in the Mirage domain? Why don't you go out? Lu Yin asked. Hongyan Mavis looked at Lu Yin deeply. How long has Fengbua nurtured you? You've acted out my surprise to the fullest, as if you've come from the Genesis space. Of course. Lu Yin couldn't help but laugh. Hongyan Mavis laughed. Fengbua has many methods and you're not the first one to try to get close to me. He knows that Lu Yuan helped me when the second continent was destroyed, and even the Akalanith the king elephant died for me. That's why he asked you to pretend to be a descendant of the Lu family in hopes of getting close to me. However, he doesn't know that I can see the candlelight. You don't have to pretend anymore. I haven't talked to anyone in a long time. Meeting you is fate. I can't help you break free from Fengbua's control, so I apologize again. If you're willing, you can talk to me. Lu Yin didn't know what to feel. He had thought that he could trick that person by pretending to be a descendant of the Lu family, but he hadn't expected that the person he was tricking wouldn't believe him either. He was in an awkward situation. What's your name? Hongyan Mavis asked. She really hadn't talked to anyone in a long time. Lu Yin was helpless. Junior's name is Xianxia. Hongyan Mavis smiled. Where are you from? I'm not sure if you're really surprised by my identity or if you're just faking it. I'm really surprised. This junior is from the 6 Paths Association. Does senior know of the Grand Empyrean? Hongyan Mavis was shocked. Tai Hong? Lu Yin nodded. That's her. Hongyan Mavis let out a long sigh and looked into the distance with nostalgia. Tai Hong, so you're from her side. No wonder you know me. How is she? Lu Yin told Hongyan Mavis a few things about the 6 Paths Association. The 6 Paths Association didn't exist back then, but there were already Grand Empyreans. This showed just how arrogant they were. Hongyan Mavis also told Lu Yin about what had happened during the Above Heaven era. She mostly talked about the 3 realms and 6 Daoists, including the Grand Empyreans. You might not believe it, but back then we almost knocked Tai Hong out. We almost knocked him out. Hongyan Mavis smiled happily as she reminisced about the times of the past. Lu Yin smiled. He believed it, and more than one person had told him that. Unfortunately, he hadn't succeeded, and the Grim Reaper had created the death mask battle technique. Tai Hong, that woman, is arrogant and disrespectful to Master. She always thinks that she's the most noble and wants to beat her up. However, she's actually quite strong and we're all lower in seniority than her. At first, we couldn't beat her even if we worked together, but things changed as we broke through to Ancestor. Everyone dared to scold her, and she was so angry that she kept complaining to Master. You don't know what happened back then. Hongyan Mavis laughed. Lu Yin didn't know how long she had been in the Mirage, but it should have been since the Above Heaven era. Rather than calling it a chat, It was more accurate to say that Lu Yin's arrival gave Hongyan Mavis a chance to talk. She spoke for a long time, and Lu Yin felt as if he had returned to the above-heaven era and was looking at that glorious civilization. Speaking of which, was she considered a chatterbox? She couldn't have inherited it from her primogenitor, right? I'm sorry for talking so much. Hongyan Mavis was embarrassed. Lu Yin replied, I'm bored anyway. Senior can speak as much as you want. Hongyan Mavis smiled. You're a good person. Who? Right, there's something interesting here. Do you want to take a look? Hongyan Mavis pointed at the wooden house. Lu Yin didn't understand. That house wasn't built by me but by Wu Tian. You can take a look at the floor. Hongyan Mavis pursed her lips and smiled. Lu Yin was excited. Could it be a powerful battle technique? Others might not have cared, but he was different. His cultivation included Wanxiang and he wasn't afraid of having too much strength. Lu Yin walked towards the wooden house and opened the door. He was still some distance away from Hongyan Mavis and that distance was safe for her. He entered the wooden house and it was very simple. It reminded him of the wooden house he and Xianxia had shared in the food paradise. The floor? Chapter 31:16. Lu Yin looked down and saw words from the above-heaven era. He had specifically asked Lu Tianyi to learn them. Build a wooden house for the convenience of future generations. Wu Tian. So it was you who built it. Didn't we come in together? Why are we so far apart? Lu Yuan. Convenience? You built a toilet? Who's so mean? It must be you, Chu Hazy. You usually don't talk but you like to stir up trouble in the dark. Also, Martial Arts University, Master is too biased towards you guys. He let you guys come in first. I'm 1,000 years late, Jialan. Jialan, I'm later than you. What did you say? Gu Yiji. Then what are you talking about now? Jialan. That's because you're useless. Leave your name if you can. Chuhei, it must be you, Lu Yuan. Fertile Earth, what does it have to do with you? Chuhei didn't say anything about you. You came in early enough. Master is biased to Jialan. It's not me, Death. It's you, Wu Tian. It's you, Gu Yiji. It's you, Lu Yuan. Roar. Big Yellow, don't think we don't know you're scolding us. Every time you roar you're scolding us. Jialan, you're a busybody, Lu Yuan. You've all come in? Hongyan. Thank you, Wu Tian, for building the wooden house. So convenient, fate. Nyo, you've finally broken through the ancestral barrier. We've waited for so long, Lu Yuan. Fertile Earth, why are you here again? I think you're up to no good. Nyo, be careful of him, Jialan. You're so happy to build a toilet. Do you like to sleep on it? Chuhei, don't think I don't know it's you. Just you wait, fate. You've all been here, Chuhei. Lu Yin looked at the words on the floor which stretched all the way to the door. His understanding of the 3 realms and 6 Daos had changed. Were they also so happy? Everyone had always thought that the seniors were serious, unsmiling, and untainted by the mundane world. But they were once young and unruly, laughing and cursing each other. Lu Yin felt like he could see the 3 realms and 6 Daos when they left these words. And now where were they? Wu Tian was imprisoned in the martial observation platform, Jialan was nowhere to be found, and the Grim Reaper was nowhere to be found. If they knew that this day would come, how would they feel? Everyone had their own responsibilities, but they couldn't see the responsibilities of others. Patriarch Lu Yuan had let Lu Yin down and made him shoulder the burden of the Lu family, but when had Patriarch Lu Yuan ever let go of this burden? How much did he bear? He also had his best friends, fellow apprentices and family. He also cared about these people. How did Patriarch Lu Yuan feel when he saw Gu Yiji betraying the human race? How would he feel when he saw Wu Tian chained to the martial observation platform? Lu Yin's gaze was complicated as he looked at the words on the floor. They had all been naive and happy before. He closed his eyes and remained silent for a long time before walking out of the wooden house. What greeted him was Hongyan Mavis' calm expression. Is that the dialogue between the 3 realms and 6 Daos? Lu Yin asked. Hongyan Mavis nodded. Master told us to enter the Mirage domain in batches. We can find our own path here. I've been here several times. I was very happy. Yes, I was very happy and carefree. After a moment of silence, Lu Yin asked, Senior, what happened between you and Fengbua? Hongyan Mavis looked into the distance. Fengbua is a traitor to the human race. My Mavis family once took him in and let him water the divine tree. However, when the Eternals destroyed the first continent and fought against the second, He betrayed us and gave the divine tree to the zombie god. He pushed down the Mavis god tree, causing me to lose almost half of my strength and unable to fight against the Eternals. In the end, the second continent was destroyed. If not for him, the second continent wouldn't have been defeated so quickly. It's not accurate to say that he's a sinner. He was planted by the Eternals in my Mavis family, and the Eternals have been plotting against us for a long time. Lu Yin couldn't help but ask, why didn't the Above Heaven sect eradicate the Eternals back then? Hongyan Mavis looked at Lu Yin. Master's decision naturally had its reasons. But not all of the progenitor's decisions are right. If we had eradicated the Eternals back then, we wouldn't have to fight against this old enemy now. Hongyan Mavis' expression was calm. But there would still be another old enemy. Lu Yin was taken aback. Another old enemy? Hongyan Mavis' gaze was filled with disappointment. The natural world is a stable ecosystem. If the ecosystem isn't stable, then there will be disasters. The universe is the same and no species can be invincible forever. Without the suppression of an old enemy, the human race would have reached the peak, but this doesn't conform to the laws of the universe. Whether it's the Eternals or other enemies, this is the law and it's also fate. Lu Yin looked at Hongyan Mavis. If the Above Heaven sect had destroyed the Eternals back then, what would have happened? Hongyan Mavis smiled. The progenitor's decision can't be wrong. Although she didn't give him a direct answer, Lu Yin could still hear the answer. The Eternals had to exist. But if that was the case, then what was the point of everything he was doing now? What was the point of Immemorial City, the Hexagon Society, and the various civilizations joining forces? Hongyan Mavis looked at Lu Yin. You're very strange and I can't tell if you're acting or not. When you see those words on the ground, you seem to be grieving for us. This isn't an attitude that someone from another civilization should have. We're different from you. Lu Yin's heart sank. If the words had been left behind by someone from another civilization, he wouldn't have felt this way. It was precisely because he was from the primordial space that he felt this complicated. Senior, tell me more about Fenghua. What's his cultivation level and techniques like? Hongyan Mavis didn't refuse and told Lu Yin everything she knew about Fenghua. Lu Yin had never heard of Fenghua in the Eternals and he didn't know if he was one of the 3 pillars or 6 voids, but he definitely had the strength of the 7 sky gods. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been able to trap Hongyan Mavis in the Mirage domain for so many years. He has the innate gift of toppling. Anything that attacks him can topple as he pleases. It's a very disgusting innate gift. Fighting him, wind candle is his battle technique. There's a saying that describes it well. When the wind blows away the candle flame, it burns to the end. When the candle flame burns out, it's the end of life. As for the sequence laws, what I understand is expansion. It's not expansion of things but expansion of time. Time expansion is like a plane stretching. In his eyes, everything changes during the expansion of time, but to others, there's no difference in the time he passes through. This is the river of time, so the expansion of time is actually a weakened version of space-time stop. Even so, in our era there aren't many people who can achieve space-time stop. Although we can touch time and space, if we don't truly study it, we won't be more proficient than him. I've fought with Fenghua many times. This kind of expansion of time can only be stopped by space-time stop. Otherwise, all of your actions will seem to slow down in his eyes, and you'll always be slower than him. Of course, this is just one of the ways to expand time. I've seen him use it before. Hongyan Mavis spoke a lot, and it could be said that she had completely revealed all of her experiences in fighting with Fenghua. She spoke very quickly, and it was clear that she had no intention of discussing with Lu Yin. It was obvious that she was just speaking, and whether or not Lu Yin understood was not within her consideration. She could not possibly think of how someone who had been controlled by candlelight would be able to resist Fenghua. She simply thought that Lu Yin was curious. Or perhaps she was just a little unwilling. Lu Yin listened quietly. He had tried to kill the 7 sky gods before, and he knew all too well how terrifying these experts were. However, every time he tried to kill them, they would always have some sort of trump card. The corpse god had relied on this trump card to escape, and the witch spirit god had almost failed as well. The undying god had only been able to surround and kill the 7 sky gods because he had used tracing the past. Otherwise, he would not have been able to deal with Fenghua's ability to jump through time. After so many intense battles, he had never been able to analyze all of his enemy's abilities so clearly. This allowed him to continuously simulate his battle with Fenghua. Here he could not rely on anyone else's strength, not even Hongyan Mavis. If she could deal with Fenghua, she would have done so long ago. She would not have been trapped here. She had also mentioned before that she seemed to have become much weaker. The Mavis family was known for their strength, but Lu Yin did not sense the same kind of nimbleness or strength that the other Mavis family members possessed. Instead, he felt a sense of weakness. Senior, why are you trapped in the mirage by Fenghua? With your strength, you shouldn't be afraid of him even if you've become weaker. Hongyan Mavis retorted, what do you think of Fenghua's strength? Lu Yin did not hesitate, very strong. The current me is no match for him, Hongyan Mavis said. Lu Yin frowned, but you shouldn't have been trapped in the mirage for so many years. Hongyan Mavis looked at Lu Yin, then why can't you understand that I've trapped him in the mirage? Lu Yin was stunned. That's right, Hongyan Mavis was in the mirage and so was Fenghua. Neither of them could leave. Hongyan Mavis smiled. I'm definitely not his opponent since I've become much weaker. However, he's not willing to let me go. He's using a cripple like me to trap an eternal expert in the mirage. Do you think it's better for the humans or the Eternals? Lu Yin looked at Hongyan Mavis in admiration. This junior understands. Hongyan Mavis stared blankly into the distance. The humans and the Eternals keep each other in check and kill each other. Neither side can completely suppress the other. Master has her own battlefield, Wu Tian and the others have their own battlefield, and I have my own battlefield. With my crippled body, I've managed to kill an eternal expert who can fight against the 3 realms and 6 paths. Even if I'm trapped here for another 1,000,000,000 years, it's not a bad thing. One day I'll be buried here. She then looked towards the wooden house and smiled happily. Actually, it's not bad, right? Lu Yin looked deeply at Hongyan Mavis before looking back at the wooden house. Perhaps one day, senior, you'll meet the person you're waiting for and write a few more words on the floor. Hongyan Mavis's gaze shook, and she looked away from the wooden house with a complicated expression. Chapter 31:17. Hongyan Mavis had always stayed here. Deep in her heart she had always hoped that one day those people would come, leave a message on the floor and take her with them. That day the fog would definitely disperse. It had been some time since they had arrived at the wooden house and Hongyan Mavis had chatted with Lu Yin for a long time. By now the candle on Lu Yin's shoulder was nearing its end. Lu Yin didn't care. The flowing light continued to burn the candle flame, and it was being devoured by the river of time. This candle flame was just for show. However, Fenghua didn't know this and neither did Hongyan Mavis. Lu Yin was waiting for the candle to burn out completely before attacking Fenghua. Or he could think of a way to have Fenghua give him a new candle to continue burning and devouring the flow of time. He didn't know how long flowing light could last. Thank you, Fenghua. Xianxia, can you see the candle on your shoulder? Hongyan Mavis asked. Lu Yin glanced at his shoulder. I can see it. It's almost over. Once the candle burns out, your life will also end. Aren't you afraid? Hongyan Mavis asked. Lu Yin was helpless. There's nothing I can do about it. Can't be changed, so just let it be. Hongyan Mavis' lips curled up. Looks like you've spent a lot of time with Fenghua. You know that the candle can automatically regenerate according to Fenghua's wishes. Lu Yin blinked. There was such a thing? Looking at Hongyan Mavis' expression, Lu Yin knew that her distrust of him had increased. He had thought that she would admire his courage in the face of death, but he hadn't expected that the candle could regenerate on its own. Hongyan Mavis must have thought that he knew something about Fenghua. In other words, he definitely understood Fenghua, which meant that he had asked Hongyan Mavis to get close to him. Lu Yin smiled wryly. The emotions he had shown when he had seen the words on the floor had caused Hongyan Mavis to have a good impression of him, but that had probably disappeared. Hongyan Mavis sighed. A person's life is greater than the heavens. I can understand everything you've done. I can't help you, but you're here to listen to me talk. Thank you, Xianxia. Lu Yin smiled. Senior, please continue. I'd like to hear you talk. Hongyan Mavis met his gaze and nodded. Thank you. Fenghua couldn't hear their conversation, but he knew that Lu Yin wouldn't be able to get close to Hongyan Mavis that easily. Thus, a single candle was clearly not enough to deal with her. Although Hongyan Mavis was becoming more and more vigilant towards him, it was still good that he could continue to use his flowing light to devour candlelight. He just didn't know how many times the count of wind would continue. There was a limit to one's patience. Once Lu Yin had spent enough time with Hongyan Mavis in the wooden hut, The candle's flame burned faster than before. This was Fengbu's urging. Lu Yin could tell. Hongyan Mavis also saw it. She said regretfully, I really want to help you get rid of this control, but Xianxia, take care of yourself. Go back and see Fengbu. Maybe he has other methods to deal with me and can let you live for now. Lu Yin shrugged and took out the fake general appointment platform that Fengbu had given him. Senior, can you differentiate between the real and fake general appointment platforms? Hongyan Mavis watched silently without saying anything. Lu Yin turned to his side and his own general appointment platform appeared. What about this? Hongyan Mavis's expression didn't change. Fengbu spent a lot of effort to deal with me. I have to say that he can pass off the fake as the real thing. Xianxia, I understand a person's desire to live and can do anything. I apologize to you, but I won't be soft-hearted. You won't be able to get close to me. Go back. Lu Yin helplessly put away the platform. What about visualization? Do you believe it? Immovable Heavenly King Elephant, 5th Mainland. Hongyan Mavis didn't say anything. Lu Yin continued, do you believe in the God Seal catalog? Hongyan Mavis's eyes widened in surprise. Fengbu has made ample preparations this time. He must have gone out, right? Even the visualization and the God Seal catalog can pass off as the real thing? Lu Yin knew that it was useless to say anything since Hongyan Mavis was determined not to believe him. Since that's the case, this junior will take his leave. Before I leave, can senior help this junior with something? Hongyan Mavis was curious. What is it? Lu Yin looked around. This fog is a threat. Senior, do you have a way to prevent this junior from being corroded by it? At the very least, I might be able to escape from Fengbu. Hongyan Mavis couldn't help but laugh. You're not the first person to make such a request. Fengbu sent people to deal with me before this as well. Alright, do as you please. She casually plucked a blade of grass from the ground and floated it over to Lu Yin. Take this with you. Lu Yin was puzzled. If you take it with you, it can temporarily prevent you from being corroded by the fog. If not for this ability, Fengbu would have scattered the fog to surround me, and I would have died long ago, she explained. Lu Yin accepted the blade of grass. Thank you, senior. He then turned to leave, his back facing Hongyan Mavis. Lu Yin stopped. Senior, there will be a battle later. If you think that this junior is acting, feel free to observe. If you think that this junior isn't acting and that I might be able to kill Fengbu, then please take action. No matter what, this junior's chances of killing Fengbu aren't high. Hongyan Mavis shook her head as she watched Lu Yin leave. How many years had it been? Fengbu had done everything he could to lure her out, but his methods had only gotten worse. She had never suspected that Lu Yin was Fengbu's way of getting close to her or luring her out. The more scheming she was, the more unwilling she was to leave. If she did, then she would be irresponsible to the humans outside. This kid wasn't bad, but it was a pity. Lu Yin walked out of the bamboo forest, getting further and further away from the wooden house. He arrived at the side of the river of time, not afraid of getting lost. There was fog everywhere and only the path leading to Fengbu was free of fog. Lu Yin stood at the edge of the river. Senior, I failed. The woman inside is very vigilant, and no matter what I said, she refused to let me get close to her. If I had succeeded on the first try, I would have killed her long ago. What did she say to you? Did she believe you? Lu Yin was helpless. No, she doesn't believe that I'm from the Lu family. She doesn't even believe in the general appointment platform? I don't know. I showed her the platform, but she didn't say anything. That's right. Now you know the woman's identity, right? Lu Yin sighed. The primordial space used to be one of the 6 Daoists of the 3 realms. Senior, you said that she should be the ancestor of the Mavis family from the 2nd mainland, Hongyan Mavis. Haha, it seems like she told you a lot. That's right, given her personality after not speaking for so many years, she must have lost her patience. He's quite talkative. Lu Yin thought back to the wooden house's floor, where Hongyan Mavis had left only one sentence. Could it be that she liked to talk? And didn't like to write? What did you talk about? Lu Yin had already thought about it on the way back, and he told Fengbu many of the things that Hongyan Mavis had told him. These were all things that had happened in the primordial space, and there was nothing to hide. Hongyan Mavis didn't trust Lu Yin at all, and she had only told him these things to pass the time. Fengbu wasn't in a hurry and he just listened. He listened for a long time. Hongyan Mavis spoke to Lu Yin for a long time. Fengbu didn't interrupt her even once and he just listened. Lu Yin's mouth was dry from all the talking. Senior, are you interested in these trivial matters? Fengbo sneered. I've heard these words no less than 3 times, all from the people I sent to get close to that woman. I just want to hear if there's any difference between what you said and what the others said. Lu Yin's eyes flashed. Is there a difference? There should be a difference. Hongyan Mavis doesn't need to repeat the same thing 3 times. There's no difference. That woman said it just for me to hear. No one likes to hear repeated things and it's so long. She's just trying to disgust me. It doesn't matter. Let alone 3 times, I'll listen to it even if it's 30 times. Lu Yin knew that Fengbo wanted to test his relationship with Hongyan Mavis. Lu Yin had told him all this, so he was no different from the people who had approached Hongyan Mavis before. In fact, there was no difference. Hongyan Mavis had never trusted him and she treated him the same as the others. By the way, Senior, I also saw some words left on the wooden house's floor. Oh, the nonsense of those fellows from the 3 realms and 6 Daos? Those fellows are either dead or missing. I saw the Grim Reaper's dismembered body fall into the burial garden with my own eyes. Wu Tian is imprisoned in the 3rd region of Calamity, and that woman, Fate, doesn't even dare to show her face. She must have seen the future and knows that humanity has no hope. Jialon, the desolate god, and the others have all disappeared. Gu Yizhi betrayed us. What's the use of her past? It won't help her at all. They're just a bunch of has-been trash. Even the progenitor is dead. Lu Yin raised a brow, but he didn't say anything. All right, prepare to meet her a second time. This time I'll tell you more about the Lu family. That woman owes the Lu family a lot and this is her weakness. With other methods you'll definitely be able to get close to her. Lu Yin looked around. Senior, can you come out and let me have a look? Otherwise, I'm not used to this kind of conversation. Kid, you want to see me? Perhaps I'll be your master in the future. That's right. I was planning to meet you this time. You should know who I am from that woman, right? Lu Yin nodded. You're a peak powerhouse from the primordial spaces era of Heavenly Dao. You're the one who personally sent the second mainland to its doom, Senior Fengbo. That's a good word. That's right, I'm Fengbo. As soon as he finished speaking, the fog dissipated. Lu Yin looked over and saw a short old man. The old man's height only reached Lu Yin's waist, but his clothes were exceptionally luxurious. Lu Yin could not understand this kind of luxury. It was neither the style of the everlasting tribe nor the primordial space. All sorts of strange patterns were embroidered on his clothes, and no matter how Lu Yin looked at them, they were unusual. When Lu Yin saw the old man, he felt a sense of suffocation wash over him. Although he did not want to admit it, Lu Yin could feel a sense of superiority. This feeling was different from that of a grand Empyrean, as it directly struck his soul. Chapter 31:18. Why did this old man give him such a feeling? The old man walked over and looked at Lu Yin's expression with satisfaction. Everyone who sees me has the same expression. There's no need to be surprised. My civilization is not something that you can understand, and this feeling is not something that you can understand either. Lu Yin was puzzled. Senior Fengbo isn't from the Genesis space? Fengbo clasped his hands behind his back. Of course not, there's no need to guess. I'm not from the Genesis space or the everlasting race. In any case, you can't guess where I came from. If you're lucky enough to become my disciple, your future will not be limited to this space-time. Lu Yin wanted to ask more about Fengbo's origins, but Fengbo didn't say anything else and instead started talking about the Lu family. What he said wasn't a secret. Aside from Madman Lu, there was nothing shameful about the Lu family. He just wanted Hongyan Mavis to trust Lu Yin more. Lu Yin interrupted. Senior, I have a plan that might be able to lure Hongyan Mavis out. Fengbo was displeased, his eyes cold. No one can interrupt me. Lu Yin quickly bowed. I don't know, please forgive me. Fengbo's eyes narrowed, killing intent flashing through them as he looked towards the river of time. Speak. Lu Yin feigned panic. Senior's desire to kill Hongyan Mavis is the same as Hongyan Mavis' desire to kill Senior. It's even possible that Hongyan Mavis wants to kill Senior even more because of the destruction of the second continent. Since that's the case, why don't we create the illusion that Senior might die and lure Hongyan Mavis out? Fengbo barked. Fool, do you think she's as stupid as you? I'll die? How? Accident? Or man-made? Who's man-made? Just you? Lu Yin hurriedly said, Cultivation deviation. Fengbo was furious. What a joke, my cultivation has already reached the peak and it's difficult for me to walk that path any further. How can I go through cultivation deviation? If there really was such a path for this old man to take, even if I had to suffer from chi deviation, this old man wouldn't waste my time here. You're too stupid. Don't use your ant-like knowledge to measure our existence. We're not something that ants like you can pry into. You only need to do what this old man tells you. Don't do anything else. Otherwise, this old man will dig out your bones and extract your marrow, making you beg for death. Do you understand? But I've already told Hongyan that Mavis is going to make a move against you. She said that if I can really kill you, she will make a move. What? You? Before Fengbo could finish speaking, Lu Yin suddenly attacked and punched at him. At the same time, Lu Yin released his limitless inner world, and the threads of time collided with each other. He used the limitless to encompass the limited, turning the limited into the limitless, and Lu Yin's arm instantly withered. This punch wasn't fast, but it infuriated the Fengbo. Lu Yin's actions had disrupted his plans. This brat had finally managed to interact with Hongyan Mavis, and who knew how long he would have to wait for the next one. This child could no longer be used. As he thought of this, he raised his hand as well. As an expert close to the 3 realms and 6 Daoists, this palm strike was far from something a progenitor could withstand. Even a sequence law powerhouse would find it difficult to withstand it. However, the Fengbo did not understand Lu Yin. He had been in the Mirage Domain for so long that he knew nothing about the outside world. Before entering the Mirage Domain, Lu Yin's 100 punches had been enough to cause a sequence law powerhouse to cough up blood, and even the corpse god had been wary of him. Now his limitless inner world had transformed, and the threads of time had collided with each other. At the same time, his arm could only withstand the force of the extreme. This punch not only contained the limit of what his limitless inner world could withstand, but it also contained the force of the extreme. Once it reached the extreme, it would absorb a second wave of damage. This punch was the strongest punch that Lu Yin had ever unleashed since he had started cultivating. However, the Fengbo had not paid much attention to this punch at first. Although he did not care, the Fengbo had already decided to deal with Lu Yin, so he did not hold back. The 2 fists collided, causing the void to collapse. The Fengbo felt 4 of his fingers break, and then an incomparably powerful force spread through his arm and struck him. He was shocked. How was this possible? How could this brat possess such terrifying strength? Lu Yin's punch continued forward, breaking the Fengbo's arm. The remaining force of the punch did not diminish as it headed for the Fengbo's head. At this moment, even an idiot would know that there was a problem. This brat clearly intended to attack him and was courting death. The Fengbo stared at Lu Yin's punch, and just as the punch was about to hit him, the scene in front of him suddenly reversed. This was the Fengbo's innate gift, reverse. Lu Yin's gaze trembled. This was the moment. If you reverse, then I reverse. Everything was reversed, and the result was that everything returned to normal. Lu Yin's punch landed on the Fengbo's head under the Fengbo's incredulous gaze, sending the Fengbo crashing into the ground. If not for the Mirage Domain and the mist, Lu Yin would not have struck the ground. Instead, he would have used his greatest strength to push forward. Although he had not used his full strength, the force that he had unleashed far surpassed any strength that he had possessed before entering the Mirage Domain. It was probably as destructive as the slippers had been when the Undying God had been trapped by the ancestral Mang. At that time, the slippers had only been upgraded once, but their destructive power had been enough to make the Undying God apprehensive. Now Lu Yin had relied on himself to reach that level of destructive power, which could even harm the 7 sky gods. The Fengbo's entire body was smashed into the ground. The Mirage Domain's ground was rather sturdy, or else it would not have been able to withstand the river of time. The Fengbo had not even sunk half a meter into the ground before his head was deformed by the punch. The world spun around him and a sharp cry rang out in his head. He was completely stunned. Lu Yin hurriedly continued to attack, punching out once more. Suddenly, the void in front of him blurred, and Lu Yin's punch seemed to have hit something as it expanded. If Hongyan Mavis had not told him about this, he would not have known about this. This was the Fengbo's sequence law. Without the celestial eye, Lu Yin had lost his ability to see the sequence particles. The punch was slowed down by the expanding sequence law, and the Fengbo looked up. In his eyes, Lu Yin's punch was extremely slow. In reality, he had relied on this sequence law to step into the domain of time, which had allowed him to obtain Zhu Hua's battle technique. With the expansion of time he could attack even faster than Lu Yin. However, Lu Yin was not unprepared. The moment he saw the expansion of time he used reverse time and parallel time. Time expansion only slowed down the enemy's attack, but parallel time caused time to stop. The Fengbo clenched his fingers together and unleashed a battle technique that pierced through the void. He had thought that this attack would be faster than Lu Yin's, as Lu Yin's perception of time had been extended by time expansion. However, this attack missed. The Fengbo's pupils shrank and another fist appeared in front of him. There was a thump and his head was smashed into the ground once more. No matter how long time expansion had been extended, Lu Yin could use reverse time to make up for it. This punch caused the Fengbo to doubt himself. He could not understand how his innate gift of reverse time had failed with the first punch. This punch was even more incomprehensible. How could time expansion fail? What had this brat done? 2 consecutive punches caused the Fengbo to bleed from his 7 orifices, dyeing the ground red. A third punch descended and the Fengbo's eyes cracked. The candle on Lu Yin's shoulder instantly stopped burning, but Lu Yin did not feel anything. He used reverse time again, and the Fengbo's pupils shrank as he stared in a certain direction, causing time expansion to occur once more. This expansion was different from the previous one. Even with reverse time expansion, Lu Yin still felt that he was too far away from the Fengbo. The Fengbo locked onto Lu Yin's position, causing time expansion to extend in all directions. He then took the opportunity to clench his fingers together and attack. Lu Yin was unable to dodge this attack, as he did not know where the Fengbo's attack would come from. He could not see clearly, so he could only use time expansion to resist. The attack landed on Lu Yin's abdomen and pierced through the void from his back. Lu Yin coughed up a mouthful of blood, unable to withstand time expansion. His body instantly lost all feeling, and this attack fully displayed the killing power of the 7 sky gods, breaking through time expansion's defensive limit. However, as the light streaked past, time expansion was reversed for a second, and Lu Yin hurriedly dodged. Lu Yin had endured a near-death injury and used time expansion to see the Fengbo's attack. When time expansion was reversed for a second, the Fengbo looked at Lu Yin in shock. "Who are you?" "Wu Yin." Lu Yin barked as he retreated and waved his hand, summoning a setting sun. A beautiful setting sun appeared above the river of time, attracting the attention of the Fengbo and Hongyan Mavis from within the bamboo forest. Hongyan Mavis had seen the battle on the banks of the river of time, and she had thought that it was just an act. However, it still looked rather desperate. The Fengbo should not have been suppressed by Xianxia, as Xianxia was only a half-ancestor, but this person had the ability to reverse time and even parallel it. Who exactly was this person? Hongyan Mavis's expression changed when she saw the setting sun appear. It was a concept-type battle technique. To them, concept-type battle techniques were not too unattainable. Although they were difficult to cultivate, that did not mean that they were powerful enough to make them envious. However, if this person was able to cultivate a concept-type battle technique, it meant that he had achieved great enlightenment in some aspect. How could such a person be controlled by the Fengbo? Hongyan Mavis's suspicions about Lu Yin were shaken. No, she could not be shaken. This person must have been sent by the Fengbo to lure her out. The Fengbo had used all sorts of methods to gain her trust in order to join the Mavis family. Otherwise, the divine tree would not have been watered by him. In the end, the divine tree's brand had been stolen and the divine tree had been toppled. She had already experienced this once and she did not want to experience it again. This battle was definitely fake. The first move, setting sun, sets world's end glow. As the setting sun disappeared, the Fengbo's understanding of the martial path became blank. He did not understand how to use his battle technique, his innate gift, or how to use his sequence laws. His mind went blank for a moment. He spat out a mouthful of blood, his confusion about the martial path causing his cultivation to go berserk. Lu Yin took advantage of this opportunity to unleash a third punch. The Fengbo's eyes turned red as he glared at Lu Yin. "Who are you?" Lu Yin punched the Fengbo's neck, forcing the Fengbo to swallow his words. The joint between his neck and shoulder shattered as blood splattered onto the ground. "I am Lu Yin." Lu Yin reversed his steps and unleashed a fourth punch. Chapter 31:19. The void around Fengbo expanded, but this time it wasn't time that was expanding but rather the void itself. Lu Yin's punch landed, but it had to pass through the expanding void. However, the force of the punch was infinitely dispersed. The void expanded, and the concentrated power of the punch was instantly dispersed. Even though it still managed to hit Fengbo, it only managed to push him back. Fengbo staggered a few steps and clutched his neck as he looked back at Lu Yin. "Brat, I don't care who you are. You're courting death." As he spoke, an indescribable power erupted from his body, causing him to grow infinitely taller. This was a power that Lu Yin could not comprehend. A figure walked out of Fengbo's body and spoke with a deafening voice. "9 firmaments, god of defense, kill." The figure seemed to contain heavenly might, connecting the heavens and the earth as it flickered with a blinding light. It raised a hand and a tower-shaped sword appeared. It slashed towards Lu Yin. This sword felt unfamiliar to Lu Yin, as if it shouldn't exist. It wasn't because of how powerful this sword was, but because it felt like it didn't belong to this world. As the sword descended, the planet formed by Lu Yin's consciousness trembled. A terrifying consciousness whizzed out, transforming into a visible gas that soared into the sky and swept out in all directions. The sword stopped above the consciousness, and Fengbo's expression changed once more. What a terrifying consciousness! How long had this brat been cultivating? Where did such a terrifying consciousness come from? Far away, Hongyan Mavis' expression changed as well. Lu Yin's consciousness was so terrifying that even the mirage domain was shaking. Fengbo's mind was struck hard and he was forced back continuously. The giant figure was faintly discernible, and the tower-shaped sword was dissipating. Fengbo's gaze was fierce. He couldn't lose. How could he lose? How old was this brat? What realm was he at? How could he defeat him? Fengbo had toppled the Mavis divine tree during the above sky sect era, causing the second mainland to collapse. How old was this brat? The giant figure suddenly became clear and the tower-shaped sword slammed down. Lu Yin clenched his fists and the consciousness planet in his heart trembled. He desperately mobilized all of his consciousness, even though he still couldn't fully control it. This was Ruin's consciousness, and Ruin's strength was definitely not below Fengbo's. Furthermore, Ruin's consciousness was his forte. At this moment, it was as if Su Jin was using his consciousness to attack Fengbo. Fengbo found it difficult to withstand, but Lu Yin himself was also suffering from the backlash. Both of them spat out blood, but the tower-shaped sword suddenly scattered and fell to the ground, instantly forming a huge tower around Lu Yin. Lu Yin's consciousness was trapped by the tower at that moment and he couldn't break out. He punched the wall of the tower, but the tower did not budge. The next moment, there was a rumbling sound from the top of the tower, as if someone was reciting something. Lu Yin looked up and saw a word, but he did not recognize it. He had studied the language of the above heaven sex era, and he had also studied the language of the Daoist sex era. However, he did not know what this word meant. The moment this word appeared, a powerful pressure crashed down on Lu Yin. The word continued to press down, and a boundless inner world appeared around Lu Yin. When things reached an extreme, they could only move in the opposite direction. He punched out, causing a second injury. This punch landed heavily on the character, but the character remained motionless. Impossible. Lu Yin's expression changed drastically. Fengbo still had this kind of power? Before Lu Yin could think any further, the tower around him suddenly disappeared as if it had never been there. If not for the fact that Lu Yin had spat out a mouthful of blood, he would not have been able to tell if the tower and the person holding it had really been there. Fengbo's face paled and he was filled with unwillingness. He turned around and left. A platform appeared in front of Lu Yin and he summoned the 7-star mantis. He could not allow Fengbo to escape. Behind him, Hongyan Mavis walked out of the bamboo forest. No matter how cautious she was, it was time for her to come out, even if Fengbo had been playing along with Lu Yin's act. This battle had definitely exhausted most of Fengbo's strength. Under such circumstances, why would she not dare to come out? She had clearly seen that the injuries that Lu Yin and Fengbo had sustained during this battle were not fake. "Senior, attack!" Lu Yin shouted. Hongyan Mavis had already attacked and she punched at Fengbo. However, this punch was not as powerful as Lu Yin's. However, Fengbo was much more cautious when facing Hongyan Mavis than when facing Lu Yin, even if Hongyan Mavis's strength was not that great. He did not hesitate to flee. "Kid, I'll remember you. I won't let you go." The void in front of him expanded as he spoke. The 7-star mantis spread its 6 wings and instantly appeared behind Fengbo at a speed comparable to that of time. Lu Yin then punched out once more. The force of this punch had been dispersed by the expansion of the void, but it only caused Fengbo to stagger and feel dizzy. Lu Yin then used the consciousness planet in his heart to bombard Fengbo with his consciousness. Lu Yin's various techniques continuously landed on Fengbo's body, but Hongyan Mavis's attacks did not have much effect on Fengbo. Fengbo was well aware of this, and he not only expanded the void around him but also the void in the distance. Lu Yin was apprehensive. Even with the grass that Hongyan Mavis had given him, he still instinctively wanted to avoid this fog. Fengbo forcefully endured Hongyan Mavis's attacks and tore through the void to stare at Lu Yin. "Kid, we'll meet again." Hongyan Mavis's lips curled up. "Fengbo, do you really think that I haven't done anything in all these years?" Fengbo did not understand. The next moment, the sky, the earth, the void, and every corner of the Mirage's domain that could be seen with the naked eye was covered in grass. Green grass by the riverbank seemed like a normal scene, but when it grew on the river of time, it was not normal at all. As soon as Fengbo tore through the void, the grass took over the void, leaving no room for him to pass through. "I didn't spend all these years in the Mirage's domain for nothing. You wanted to kill me, and I was also thinking of ways to kill you. I firmly believed that one day someone would help me kill you. That day has finally come, and you must atone for your betrayal." Hongyan Mavis revealed a towering aura that swept away her previous useless attacks. At this moment, Lu Yin could clearly see that she was the ancestor of the Mavis family, one of the 6 paths of the 3 realms. Even though she had lost most of her strength, she was still an absolute powerhouse. She was an absolute powerhouse who could stop Fengbo from escaping the Mirage's domain. Fengbo could not escape from the grass that filled the Mirage's domain. For many years he had believed that he was the one who had chased after Hongyan Mavis and had trapped her in the Mirage's domain, not daring to leave. But from another perspective, wasn't it Hongyan Mavis who had trapped him? Hongyan Mavis was naturally not Fengbo's match, but with Lu Yin things were different. Lu Yin continuously attacked Fengbo, using his consciousness, domain, and spiritual force. Flowing light constantly circled around him to guard against Fengbo's innate gift while also devouring Zhu Hua's time. Fengbo's position was provided by Hongyan Mavis. Lu Yin's attacks were so powerful that Fengbo coughed up blood every time he hit him, but 9 out of 10 times he failed to hit him. It was not easy for an expert of the 7 sky gods to be trapped. Lu Yin was still a half-step ancestor, not even a progenitor. No matter how strong his battle prowess was, there would always be a limit, and it would be difficult for this limit to suppress Fengbo's upper limit. Fengbo's arm constantly changed from withered to normal, and his endless inner worlds collided again and again, causing him to be unable to lift his right arm. Right. Lu Yin's left arm struck out. Flowing light. Fengbo appeared along with the flow of energy, looking extremely miserable. When he saw Lu Yin's punch coming, the void expanded and continuously dispersed Lu Yin's power. The punch landed on him and sent him flying even further away. The fog was constantly pushed away by the grass, and Hongyan Mavis and Lu Yin chased after him. They had been chasing after Fengbo for a long time within the mirage. Not only was Lu Yin unable to lift his right arm, but his left arm was also at its limit. He did not count how many punches he had thrown out. It might have been 100 or even 200. In any case, his arm was already trembling from the exhaustion, and blood was seeping out of his skin. Lu Yin had even used the victorious battle technique, but no matter how strong his willpower was, there was still a limit to his body. No matter how miserable Fengbo was, there was still a long way to go before he was killed. Lu Yin could not cross this distance. With the general appointing platform and the divine seal catalog, no matter how many progenitors appeared, they would not even be able to touch Fengbo. Lu Yin could only rely on himself. Lu Yin panted heavily, unwilling to give up. This was also an encirclement, and he had joined forces with Hongyan Mavis to kill him. He had reached his limit. He had tried rolling his die, but this place was no longer connected to time. Pips had not changed, which meant that he could not rely on pips to recover. There was no concept of time here. This was equivalent to depriving him of one of his methods. Cough cough. Lu Yin forced himself to raise his right arm, but he could only raise it to his heart before he could no longer move it. Hongyan Mavis was helpless. Forget it, you've already reached your limit. Lu Yin gritted his teeth. Senior, this old fellow is also nearing his limit. Hongyan Mavis was bitter. Even if you were added to the mix, he still wouldn't reach his limit. Lu Yin opened his mouth to say something, but Hongyan Mavis spoke first. It's my fault. Lu Yin asked, what did you do wrong? Hongyan Mavis shook her head. If I had trusted you from the start and cooperated with you, we might have been able to kill him. Lu Yin said, you can't say that. If Senior trusted others so easily, then Junior would not have come. No one is right or wrong. I can only say that this old fellow's life is not meant to end. At this point they were no longer on the banks of the river of time. They had long since entered the depths of the forest. Lu Yin was curious. Senior, were you the one who planted this bamboo forest? Hongyan Mavis replied, not me, this is a type of plant that grows in the mirage. Plants are very mysterious. As long as there is a place for them to grow, they can always find a way to survive no matter how harsh the environment is. When I first came here there were not only bamboo here but also flowers. Unfortunately those flowers have been plucked away. Are they useful? Lu Yin asked. Useless. I don't even know who plucked them, how wicked. In the distance Fengbu's voice rang out from the mist. Hongyan, what's the point of trapping me in the mirage? The mirage is huge and you didn't even search the entire area. Do you really think you can trap me here? Hongyan Mavis sneered. Then run. If you have the ability, run to a place we haven't been to before. Brothers, please forgive me. Sometimes it's not that I don't want to update but that I can't. My baby is just 5 months old and I haven't had a good night's sleep. I'm too tired and I've already quit my previous job. Now I'm working at a friend's company and it's not easy either. I'll have to go on a business trip next month. Even now I'm writing a few more words every day, but I still can't keep up with the consumption. I'm constantly jumping between having and not having any chapters. The only thing keeping me going is the support of my brothers. Thank you, thank you. Chapter 31:20. There's no need. That kid isn't strong enough to kill me. All you can do is trap me. What's the point? Even if you trap me for 10,000 years or 100,000 years, you can wait and so can I. Can that kid wait? The Fengbu's voice was sunken. Lu Yin looked up. Old man, I can wait. There's no concept of time here anyway. I'll break through to the ancestor realm here and reach the primordial realm. I heard that the Mirage domain has a chance of reaching the primordial realm, so I'll cultivate here. Kid, you're so young but your cultivation has increased too quickly. However, you don't have a corresponding temperament. How can you endure hundreds of millions of years of hardship? Even if there's no concept of time here, so much time has passed for you. Once you leave, the people outside will be the same as before, but you'll have changed. You'll become a stranger and you'll no longer care about their lives. Just wait here. There's enough time for you to see that humans and Eternals are just shells. Only your thoughts are truly eternal. Lu Yin looked into the distance. If that's really the case, why do you insist on staying here to kill Senior Hongyan? The Fengbu said nothing. Lu Yin continued. Because you also care about the so-called shells. You know that you're a traitor. If you don't kill Senior Hongyan, you won't be able to get over it. In the past you did everything you could to make Senior Hongyan trust you. Now you'll use even more methods to get rid of the sincerity you once gave. Killing Senior Hongyan is a form of repentance for your past. How laughable. I don't belong to your space-time in the first place, so why would I need to repent? It's repentance for your despicable self. Because you're despicable and shameless, sincerity is an insult to you. You've given sincerity before. Kid, do you really think you can convince me? Lu Yin scorned. I only wanted to curse you, but I realized that cursing you would only dirty my own mouth. You have a sharp tongue. I'd like to see how long you can stay here. Hongyan Mavis' expression changed and she looked in a certain direction. He's far away, but I've already controlled all the places he dares to set foot in. He can't escape. Lu Yin was puzzled. Places he dares to set foot in? Is there a place in the Mirage that even he doesn't dare to set foot in? Hongyan Mavis said solemnly, the Mirage domain is a magical place. You can see the river of time, but it's not limited to the river of time. There are phenomena here that ordinary people can't imagine, such as the chain of causality. We've seen it before. It's as if all the conjectures in the world exist here, but it's also as if this is the origin of all conjectures. This place wasn't created by the primogenitor? Hongyan Mavis shook her head. Of course not. Back then, Master and the others joined forces to fix the Mirage domain in our universe. In Master's words, the Mirage domain had existed long before him. Even Master and the others couldn't see it clearly. Even with the River of Time, if they wanted to fish out the past, they could only fish out the past with the same source of power. You were born in our primordial space, so what you fished up was the past of the primordial space. However, before the primordial space, before the existence of Master and the others, there were countless civilizations. Without the power of those civilizations, you would not have been able to fish up the past of those civilizations. At this point, she suddenly felt strange. Why do you think this place was created by Master? Because I was sent here by the primogenitor. Hongyan Mavis' eyes widened. You were sent here by Master? How is he? Don't worry, Senior. The primogenitor is fine. Lu Yin did not plan on telling Hongyan Mavis about the primogenitor's predicament. Otherwise he knew what she would do. It could be seen that in the distant above heavens era, the primogenitor, the three realms and the six Daos had an extremely good relationship with each other. Who said that absolute powerhouses had to be aloof and indifferent to emotions. Inside the wooden house, those who had left words on the floor were all absolute powerhouses. Which one of them was not a legend? However, they were very ordinary and had the most sincere feelings for each other. Hongyan Mavis anxiously asked, "Where is Master?" Lu Yin pointed into the distance. Hongyan Mavis said, "Don't worry, I won't let him hear us. He can't hear us." Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief and met Hongyan Mavis's excited gaze. He then told her what he knew about the primogenitor. He told her that the primogenitor was fighting in Primeval City, but he did not go into too much detail. I only said a few words to the primogenitor, and he threw me into the mirage, saying that it was suitable for me to train here. Hongyan Mavis smiled in relief and her eyes reddened. I always thought that Master had met with misfortune. It's good that he's not dead, it's good that he's not dead. She looked into the distance with a complicated gaze and then walked towards the River of Time, reminiscing about the past. Lu Yin did not disturb her. It was only when they reached the River of Time that Hongyan Mavis calmed down. Now you can tell me about yourself. Who are you? What's your background? What's going on outside? Lu Yin nodded and told her everything about himself as well as what had happened in the outside world. Hongyan Mavis was shocked. The above heavens era had been brilliant because the primogenitor had suppressed everything. No one in the three realms and six Daos had been able to compete with him. Now the Eternals were powerful and the humans were being suppressed, but Lu Yin was still able to lead the fifth mainland into battle. He had even suppressed the Eternals and killed the seven sky gods. Even Hongyan Mavis felt admiration for him. Lu Yin had been able to kill the seven sky gods, which meant that he could also kill the three realms and six Daos. He had truly started from the bottom and climbed up step by step until he could stand against the Eternals and even be killed by the only true God. Hongyan Mavis looked at Lu Yin in a completely different light. It's no wonder that you've become a half-progenitor at such a young age. Your strength can even threaten powerhouses like us. Lu Yin, even if you were in our era, you wouldn't be any weaker than anyone else. Your radiance is comparable to the few of us. Lu Yin himself was well aware of this. Even in the above heavens era, aside from the three realms and six Daos, how many people could fight against him at this moment? Of course, before coming to the Mirage, Lu Yin did not have such terrifying strength and had often relied on external items. After entering the Mirage, his limitless inner world had transformed, giving him destructive power that could threaten the seven sky gods. This was the beginning of his transformation. It was also the beginning of his official entry into the seven sky gods' battlefield. Even without Hongyan Mavis, Lu Yin would not have been able to kill Fengbo in his battle with him, and Fengbo would not have been able to kill him either. However, Lu Yin was not arrogant. A large part of the reason why he had been able to achieve such an effect when fighting Fengbo was because he had understood Fengbo from the very beginning and had simulated the battle many times. Even so, he had almost been severely injured by Fengbo. The seven sky gods were not simple and his destructive power was not enough. He was still far from being able to crush the seven sky gods. Only by breaking through to progenitor and transforming again could he truly crush the seven sky gods and face the only true god. This was his goal in coming to the Mirage. Senior, we can kill Fengbo. Lu Yin looked at Hongyan Mavis with a resolute expression. Hongyan Mavis did not understand. Lu Yin said seriously, give this junior some time, and this junior can cultivate to the point where he can kill Fengbo. Hongyan Mavis was surprised. You want to break through to progenitor? Lu Yin shook his head. It's not easy to break through to progenitor, and I haven't reached the point where I can break through to progenitor yet. However, this junior's strength can transform. Hongyan Mavis did not ask any more questions. You can cultivate as much as you want. No matter how long it takes, I'll stand guard. Lu Yin nodded and walked towards the river of time. He looked at the surging river and could not see the end of it. He did not know where it began or where it ended. He hoped that one day he would be able to go against the flow of the river of time and pursue the ancient past. The only one who could do this was Flowing Light. The direction of Flowing Light's transformation was a boat. Using space to chase after time, turning it into a boat and roaming the river of time. This was something that Lu Yin had thought of a long time ago. Especially after seeing the river of time here, Lu Yin was even more certain of this point. The river of time was a river and it had shores and bridges. Thus, it was only natural that there would be boats. Lu Yin had stayed on the shore for so many years, but he had not seen any boats steering the river of time. He wanted to be the first to steer the river of time. This was the direction of Flowing Light's transformation. Although it increased the flow of time, it might not be able to do anything to Fengbua. There was also the True God's Freedom technique that he wanted to cultivate. After fusing with Ruin's body, Lu Yin obtained the True God's Freedom technique. He had seen how powerful it was in the second disaster zone. Void Master, Wood God, and the others had been severely injured without being able to retaliate. It was one of the True God's 3 ultimate techniques. Since he had obtained it, Lu Yin wanted to cultivate it. He wanted to use the True God's Freedom technique to kill Fengbua. However, he did not know if it would be difficult to cultivate. Lu Yin could not see too much of Ruin's memories, and it was already quite good that he could see the cultivation method. The True God's Freedom technique turned one's thoughts into lanterns. Cutting off all lanterns meant cutting off all thoughts. There was no self, there was no other. Lanterns appeared in the starry sky above Lu Yin's heart, floating in space. Lu Yin looked at one of the lanterns. Lu Yin spat out a mouthful of blood and his eyes widened. No, that was not the right way to do it. Little 7. Hongyan Mavis was shocked and hurried over to check on him. Lu Yin waved a hand. I'm fine. He paused and then his eyes flashed. That old fogey Fengbua's candle flame injured me, but it's fine. Hongyan Mavis did not understand, and she was about to say something when she saw Lu Yin give her a meaningful look. She frowned. Fengbua's candle flame has the power of time, and it's transformed from his innate gift. When the wind blows away the candle flame, it will burn away. This sentence once brought disaster to the second mainland, and it won't be so easily resolved. Are you all right? Lu Yin's face paled. I'm fine. Suddenly, a candle flame appeared on each of his shoulders. Lu Yin's expression changed. Old fogey, you dare to attack me? Fengbua's voice rang out from the distance. Brat, I was wondering why you could ignore my battle technique so easily. Even a sequence law powerhouse would not be able to break free from it. There really is a problem. If one candle flame can't hurt you, then I'll have 2. I'll borrow them without limit. I'd like to see how long you can last. Lu Yin stared at Hongyan Mavis. Senior, didn't you say that this old fogey couldn't hear our conversation? Hongyan Mavis bitterly replied, you were injured and I was careless. Chapter 31-21. Lu Yin spat out the blood in his mouth, his face ashen. This is troublesome. This old thing won't let me off. Senior, I might not be able to hold on much longer. Let's go back to the wooden house. If I can't hold on any longer, I'll have to leave. Don't worry, I'll find a way to save you. Kid, there's no need to save me. If you leave, I'll leave too. We'll fight outside and I'll make sure you suffer, Fengbua spat out. Lu Yin shook his head and exchanged glances with Hongyan Mavis. They could see the smiles in each other's eyes as they walked back to the wooden house. Hongyan Mavis didn't know why Lu Yin had purposely lured Candle over, but she knew that it was useless against him. Of course Lu Yin wanted to do that. Without Candle, how could Flowing Light devour time? He wanted Flowing Light to devour time, which would increase Flowing Light's retrospect time. This was equivalent to cultivating Flowing Light while he cultivated True God's Freedom technique. Fengbua wasn't stupid. Lu Yin had truly been injured. That blood had come from a mistake while cultivating True God's Freedom technique. This injury was even more severe than the one he had suffered in the battle with Fengbua, so how could Fengbua not believe him? This situation was similar to how Hongyan Mavis had confirmed that Lu Yin wasn't acting because his battle with Fengbua had been too intense. Lu Yin had also taken advantage of the situation when he was injured. Otherwise he wouldn't have known how to lure Fengbo into attacking him and giving him candle. This old man's candle had saved Lu Yin a lot of time. Lu Yin returned to the wooden house, where Fengbo couldn't attack Hongyan Mavis even if Lu Yin wasn't around. Lu Yin could cultivate without any worries while devouring candle's time. True God's freedom technique was very difficult to cultivate and Lu Yin kept trying. Every time he cut down the lantern he would spit out blood, which made Fengbo think that Lu Yin had been seriously injured by candle. Hongyan Mavis even thought that Lu Yin had been seriously injured by candle. Otherwise, why would he spit out so much blood? After cultivating for a long time, Lu Yin opened his eyes, exhausted. Hongyan Mavis was apprehensive. How are you? Lu Yin was helpless. There are some problems that I don't know how to solve. Tell me about it. Maybe I can help you, Hongyan Mavis said. Lu Yin looked at her. Senior, have you heard of the only true God's 3 ultimate techniques? Hongyan Mavis was surprised. Are you practicing the eternal battle skill? Lu Yin nodded. I disguised myself and entered the Eternals. I unintentionally obtained a true God's ultimate skill. This time I want to practice the true God's ultimate skill to deal with Windmaster. Hongyan Mavis frowned. Nonsense. How could you possibly cultivate an eternal battle skill? Eternal battle skills are based on divine power. Let's not talk about whether or not you have divine power. Even if you do, the characteristic of divine power is emotionless. Can you be emotionless? Cultivating a battle skill on the basis of ruthlessness is only a possibility. If it were that easy to cultivate an eternal battle skill, there would be only a handful of Eternals who could do it. Back when my second continent was destroyed and the Eternal race fought against the primordial space, I never saw anyone from the Eternal race use the eternal battle skill. Hongyan Mavis recalled that decisive battle and was still shocked to this day. In that decisive battle, no one was able to hide their strength. If anyone had an eternal battle technique, they would have used it long ago. When he saw that Hongyan Mavis had started to pour her heart out, Lu Yin felt helpless. She had sunk into her memories again, and the more she experienced, the more memories she would have. This reminded Lu Yin of the primogenitor and the big-faced tree. The tree continued to tell Lu Yin about the Third Continent's War, and Hongyan Mavis began to talk about the Second Continent's War. What Lu Yin wanted to know the most was how the First Continent had been destroyed. At the time, the First Continent had been the first to be destroyed, and it had been the time when the above heaven was at its peak. The 3 realms and 6 Daoists were all present, so how could it have been destroyed by the Eternals? The primogenitor had suppressed everything, but who had suppressed the primogenitor? Unfortunately, even Hongyan Mavis did not know how the First Continent had been destroyed. Everything had happened too quickly. Ignoring her, Lu Yin continued to cultivate. The true God's freedom technique required one to abandon their ideals and live as long as the heavens and the earth. Was he really unable to cultivate it? A long time passed and one day candlelight suddenly disappeared. Lu Yin opened his eyes and shook his head. Had Fengbo noticed? Fengbo was not stupid. Although Lu Yin frequently vomited blood, he had not died and had even persisted for so long. No matter how he looked at it, there was something wrong. Fengbo was not sure if candlelight had harmed Lu Yin, so he had taken it away. If candlelight had not harmed Lu Yin, and if Lu Yin had deliberately allowed Fengbo to use it, the final outcome would have been beyond Fengbo's imagination. Candlelight had already disappeared, and Lu Yin traveled through the stream of light to check the time. 2,375 seconds. A full 2,375 seconds had passed, and Lu Yin was pleasantly surprised. This was twice as long as when he had first met Fengbo, and nearly 4 times as long as when he had first entered the Mirage domain. Back then, Lu Yin had wanted to try transforming flowing light within 1,000 seconds, but he had been interrupted by Fengbo. Now it was time. Hongyan Mavis watched Lu Yin cultivate curiously. At her level, she could tell at a glance that Lu Yin's cultivation was not something she could guide. He had his own path of cultivation. Flowing light continued to travel through the stream of light, and Lu Yin kept a close eye on the time as he tried to change flowing light's form. There was no reaction the first time and there was still no reaction the second time. The 5th time, the 10th time, and all the way until the 30th time flowing light changed. Lu Yin's eyes lit up, and he began to cultivate flowing light's path of transformation. Lu Yin cultivated in the Mirage domain for a very long time, transforming his limitless inner world. He then met Fengbo and fought a great battle. Now he was transforming flowing light again. If converted to the outside world's time, it would take at least a few hundred years. However, the Mirage domain did not touch time, so to the outside world, not much time had passed since Lu Yin had been taken away by Mr. Mu in the second disaster zone. However, in this short period of time, news of Lu Yin's death had already spread throughout the Six Direction Society. It had spread so quickly that even the Lu family with deity and the others had not expected it. It was as if there was a hand pushing for this news to spread. Lu Yin's importance to the Six Direction Society was indescribable. He had come into contact with the Six Direction Society, and his influence was only second to that of a Grand Empyrean. During the Grand Empyrean Tea Party, his half-progenitor origin tribulation had greatly shocked the Six Direction Society. If not for the Grand Empyrean's abnormally high cultivation, no one in the Six Direction Society would have been able to suppress Lu Yin. When such a person was alive, nothing had happened, but once he died, all of the dissatisfaction and resentment towards him erupted. When news of Lu Yin's death spread throughout the Six Direction Society, no one said anything on the surface, but many people were secretly happy. For example, some of Lotus Reverend's disciples, some of the cultivators from the reincarnation spacetime, and even some from the Genesis space had been dissatisfied with Lu Yin, but they had not dared to voice it out. Now they were happy. But for now they were only happy in secret. They still did not dare to voice it out. Lu Yin's influence was too great, and while there were some who were dissatisfied with him, the majority still respected him. If not for Lu Yin, the endless battlefield and the Six Direction Society's border war front would have been filled with endless slaughter, and many people would have died. These people were truly grateful to Lu Yin. There was no need to even mention the Genesis space. The fact that Lu Yin had been accepted by the Fifth Mainland and obtained the wordless Heavenly Tome's inner world was the best proof. When news of his death spread, countless people grieved and cursed at the sky, but even more people did not believe it. Everyone's gazes gathered on the Above the Heavens sect, waiting for someone to speak up and for Lu Yin to appear. At the back mountain of the Above the Heavens sect, there were several stargates erected beside the stone table where Lu Yin had stayed all year round. These stargates were the ones that led to the Expedition of Calamity and the ones that led to Yixing. On this day, outside the Above the Heavens sect, figures with dark red auras appeared and charged towards the Above the Heavens sect. They were the Berserk corpses. Although there were no more Berserk corpses in the first zone of Calamity, the Eternals had gathered all of the Berserk corpses in the other zones. This was because this was a divine commandment and it was an all-out war. The Above the Heavens sect's alarm went off, and Elder Chan and the other experts all stepped out and attacked together. No one had expected the Eternals to suddenly attack the Above the Heavens sect. It had only been a few days since news of Lu Yin's death had spread, and the Eternals had acted too quickly. While the battle outside the Above the Heavens sect broke out, a group of people had also gathered at the foot of the mountain where the stargates were located. These people were not corpse kings but rather humans. They were spies of the Eternals. The fact that they could remain in the Above the Heavens sect meant that they had been thoroughly investigated. Even so, they were still spies because the Eternals had never used them. They were the most secretive spies that the Eternals had left behind in the Fifth Mainland. These spies did not have very high cultivations, but they were still able to enter the Above the Heavens sect. This was their value. When the Berserk corpses attacked the Above the Heavens sect, the area outside the Above the Heavens sect had been turned upside down. These spies had also acted and their target had been the Stargates. Lung Qing was the one guarding the Stargates, but even a progenitor could not protect them. The Stargates belonged to the Eternals. These spies had not acted to deal with Lung Qing, but rather to destroy the Stargates. The moment she released her divine power, the Stargates were no longer under Lung Qing's control. The battle in the Above the Heavens sect had ended with Lu Tiany's arrival. The Berserk corpses had all been killed, and the human spies who had attacked the Stargates had also died. They had not planned on staying alive from the moment they had attacked, and the Stargates had been destroyed. Lu Tiany stood on the mountain peak with an ugly expression as he stared at the shattered Stargates. Elder Chan sighed. I was too careless. I did not expect the Eternals to target these Stargates. Lung Qing tightened her grip on her blade. It's my fault. Lu Tiany glanced at them. No one is to blame. The Eternals have been watching the Above the Heavens sect for too long. Those spies have existed since before the Above the Heavens sect was established, and even before Little Seven stepped onto the path of cultivation. None of you are to blame. Not far away, Wang Wen arrived and looked at the shattered stargates. He clutched his head. This is troublesome. The stargates are no longer here. Although those civilizations can find us, we can't find them. Since the Eternals have chosen to attack the stargates, they will either attack us in the shortest amount of time possible, leaving us isolated and helpless, or they will attack those civilizations. Who do you think the Eternals will attack? Elder Chan asked. Lu Tianyi also looked at Wang Wen. He had never underestimated Wang Wen because of his cultivation. Wang Wen had helped Lu Yin too much. In the Above the Heavens sect, Wang Wen's cultivation was at the bottom, but his status was comparable to Elder Chan and the others. Wang Wen did not hesitate. Chapter 31-22. Will the Eternals attack us? Lu Tianyi asked. Wang Wen nodded. If I were the Eternals, I would attack the primordial space while cutting off all external aid. Firstly, the primordial space is the strongest and has the most experts. Secondly, the Eternals have been suppressed because of the primordial space. Thirdly, they can confirm His Highness' death and throw the entire Six Direction Society into chaos, killing 3 birds with 1 stone. You're right. The Six Direction Society is already in chaos. The news of His Highness' death is the Eternals' first step. They're testing the Six Direction Society and His Highness at the same time. The Eternals might not be sure that His Highness is dead. At this point, he leaned toward Lu Tianyi. Senior, may I ask what happened to His Highness? Lu Tianyi did not know how to answer. He did not know whether Xiaoqi was dead or not. Logically speaking, he should have died. The only true divinity had made a move, and his opponent was a half-step ancestor. How could he not die? However, Ancestor Lu Yuan said that might not be the case. Mr. Mu had taken Xiaoqi away. In Ancestor Lu Yuan's words, Mr. Mu was someone who could debate the Tao with a primogenitor. If he made a move, Xiaoqi might be saved. Wang Wen sighed. It seems that you don't know either. Forget it. No matter what, we should immediately seek external aid. This battle will happen soon. The Eternals will not give us too much time. Don't forget that the Fifth Mainland already has so many spies. The Six Direction Society will only have more. That by Wuxian, who has the Eternal list, is sometimes the biggest threat. Wang Wen had ordered a lockdown on the news of the Stargate's destruction, but the news still reached the Six Direction Society. Not only did it reach the Six Direction Society, but it also reached the 5 spirit tribes, the Trimoon Alliance and other extraterrestrials. Instead of destroying a few Stargates, the news spread directly. The primordial space had lost all external aid. At this moment, countless members of the Six Direction Society were discussing in secret. It seems that the news of Lord Lu's death is true. Otherwise, how could the Above Heaven be attacked? Do you know that the attackers are berserk corpses? Berserk corpses? The berserk corpses that Lord Lu is best at dealing with? That's right. Berserk corpses are very difficult to deal with. Once they're thrown into spacetime, they will bring disaster. It's said that there aren't many of them left. Even so, they dared to send them to the Above Heaven. I can imagine. I heard that the Above Heaven sect's allied civilization was destroyed. I heard that the Stargate was destroyed. In any case, the Above Heaven sect can no longer join forces with the extraterrestrial civilizations. Lord Lu just died, and something like this immediately happened to the Above Heaven sect. The Eternals should be making a move against the Above Heaven sect. Then what should we do? I don't care what other people think. I will support Master Lu. If the sects above start a war, I will go and help. Without Master Lu, we wouldn't have any peace. I would have died long ago. Me too. Me too. Humph, idiot. Master Lu is thinking for himself. Back then, it was because of our Six Paths sect's coercion that he disguised himself and joined us. If he didn't help Six Paths sect, where would the primordial space's status come from? How do you think the 3 monarchs universe disappeared? Who do you think transdimensional listens to? That's right. I heard that Master Lu had invited the Void Master and the Wood God to wage war against the Zone of E many times. His purpose was to injure the Void Master and the Wood God, or even kill them, so that he could control the Void Master and the Wood God's time and space. I heard about it too. Retribution. The entire Six Paths sect was spreading unfavorable news about Lu Yin. It was as if the Six Paths sect had become the primordial space's enemy overnight. Although most people still supported Lu Yin and didn't believe these rumors as time passed, there were bound to be people who believed them. Even if these rumors couldn't convince everyone sometimes, they would become a mountain that prevented people from supporting the above heaven. Reincarnation Spacetime Lotus Domain. Many venerable Lotus disciples were discussing this matter. Little Lien heard them and scolded, "Don't talk nonsense. Brother Xianxia isn't dead. He didn't scheme against our Six Paths sect." The group of venerable Lotus disciples dispersed, not daring to argue with Little Lien. Little Lien couldn't say anything. Behind her, Yaolon walked over. Little Lien. Little Lien felt wronged. "Senior sister, why would they believe those rumors? Brother Xianxia has done a lot for the Six Paths sect. If it weren't for him, the war wouldn't have stopped. I would have gone to the endless battlefield too. No one knows if I'm dead or alive. It's all because of Brother Xianxia that the everlasting race is suppressed." Yao Lan gently said, "Don't worry too much about it. These rumors are just some petty schemes. However, some of them aren't without reason." Little Lien looked at Yao Lan blankly. Yao Lan's gaze turned cold. "Do you really think that transdimensional is still in charge? This Master Lu has many tricks up his sleeve." Little Lien looked at Yao Lan like she was looking at a stranger. She had never realized that her senior sister could be so cold. After Little Lien left, Yao Lan requested an audience with Venerable Lotus. "Master, the above heaven sect has been attacked. From the looks of it, the everlasting race is going to attack the primordial space. How should we deal with this? I've been injured for a long time. Master Lu forced me to go to the first disaster realm and my injuries have worsened. I can't help the above heaven sect anymore. You can go and help them." "Yes, Master." In the endless battlefield, Mr. Daheng heard the rumors outside and his expression sank. Lu Yin had actually died. He didn't know what he was feeling. He couldn't be sure if Lu Yin had schemed against him. If he had, then he shouldn't have given him the stone fragment. If he hadn't, then the matter wouldn't have developed to this point. But no matter what, he had obtained the stone fragment. Since that was the case, Lu Yin's death had nothing to do with him. The most important thing now was to collect the stone fragment and go to the Mirage Domain. As long as he went there, he would have a chance of reaching the primordial realm. The primordial realm? He had no clue at all. The Mirage Domain definitely had a way. As for the above heaven sect being attacked, what did that have to do with him? In the Three Sovereigns universe, Luo Shan also heard the rumors. He looked at the sky and muttered to himself, "Although our grudges are settled, I'm still happy to hear that you're dead. Lu Yin, this is what it means to be settled." In the Rotten God universe, Yi Xing's headquarters, Bai Ting couldn't help but laugh when he heard the news of Lu Yin's death. This person had helped Yi Xing once and had Yi Xing under his thumb. Bai Ting didn't dare to refute any of his requests. Now that he was dead, the Six Paths Society would have one less mountain to rely on. Men. Yes. Send Lu Fuxia back to the primordial space and never hire her again. Sir, this. The people behind him trembled. Who didn't know that Madame Nailin and Lu Fuxia were backed by the above heaven sect? Bai Ting looked back with a cold gaze. Go immediately. Yes. Bai Ting sneered. Without Lu Yin, there was no need to worry about the above heaven sect. So what if they wanted to cause trouble for Yi Xing? So what? He had plenty of reasons to fire Lu Fuxia, and the above heaven sect couldn't even protect themselves. It was a pity that Lu Yin died too late. When Bai Lan received the news, she quickly went to find Bai Ting. Acting Master, you want to fire Lu Fuxia? Bai Ting had already calmed down. Why? Do you have any objections? Bai Lan said, Lu Fuxia is backed by the above heaven sect and we have a good relationship with them. If we fire her, it will be hard to explain to them. Bai Ting frowned and slowly turned to look at Bai Lan. Do I need to explain to others if I want to fire a subordinate? Bai Lan quickly bowed. This subordinate didn't mean that, it's just, alright, there's no need to say any more. Lu Fuxia violated the rules and told my secret to outsiders. Just this alone is enough for me to fire her. In the past I gave face to the above heaven sect, but now it's useless. Throw her back to the primordial space and never hire her again. Bai Lan reminded, what if Master Lu comes? Bai Ting's body trembled and anxiety appeared in his eyes. But then he remembered that Lu Yin was dead and the news had spread throughout the Six Paths Society. What was there to be afraid of? If he comes, then let him come. No one can break my rules. Leave. Bai Lan had no choice but to leave. Not long after, Madame Naylan returned to the primordial space. Bailon personally sent her off. Sorry, I didn't expect this. Bailon was helpless. Although Madame Naylan had the Above Heaven sect as her backing and had a special status in the E-Guild, she had never had any conflicts with Bailon. The two got along very well, and she had also brought Bailon into the E-Guild. Madame Naylan smiled faintly. No need to apologize, we will meet again soon. Bailon was confused. Madame Naylan looked at the sky. Rumor has it that Master Lu is dead, but I believe that he is still alive. He won't die so easily. Wait for me. With that, she flew towards the Above Heaven sect. Bailon looked at Madame Naylan's smiling face. The outside world clearly said that Master Lu was dead, so where did her confidence come from? Or was it that not only her but the primordial space also had confidence in Lu Yin? If Lu Yin really didn't die and returned, what would Yi Xing do? Bailon didn't dare to think about it. Lu Yin wasn't an ordinary powerhouse, and the Above Heaven sect had experts that could shake the Six Direction Society. However, Bai Ting didn't care because these experts acted like ordinary people and wouldn't do anything to Yi Xing without a reason. However, Lu Yin was different. No one could predict Lu Yin's actions, which was why Yi Xing was afraid of him. Lu Yin returned. Bailon took a deep breath and didn't dare to think about it. Bai Ting was too anxious. He had been suppressed by Lu Yin to the point that he couldn't breathe. He had been waiting for this day for a long time. No matter what, Yi Xing didn't need to care about other people's opinions before this, but ever since Lu Yin appeared, Yi Xing had to. This was just the beginning. As the news of Lu Yin's death spread, more and more unfavorable things would happen to the Above Heaven sect. The Mirage Domain was a place that didn't interact with time. Lu Yin had spent a long time in the Six Direction Society, and many people would have forgotten about his existence. Lu Yin would have become a legend. Lu Yin kept trying to transform the light into a shape. Time passed and the light kept changing. Finally, the light completely transformed into the shape of a boat. It looked blurry and transparent, as if it didn't exist at all. However, Lu Yin could clearly see that it was the shape of a boat. Senior, do you see it? Junior succeeded. It's the shape of a boat. Lu Yin was excited. Chapter 31-23. Hongyan Mavis sighed in admiration. Your inner world should have been fixed and could only transform after reaching progenitor realm. I didn't expect it to transform now. Why did you shape it into a boat? Lu Yin suppressed his excitement. Because one day, I hope to go against the flow of time. Hongyan Mavis was shocked. You want to enter the river of time? Lu Yin looked at her and smiled. It's just a wish. Sometimes it's better to have a bigger wish. Even if you can't reach it, being able to get close is already good enough. Hongyan Mavis laughed. Do you think it's a business deal? He had succeeded in shaping the light into a boat, but it was still unstable. Lu Yin continued to shape the light for the rest of his time. It would look the same when it first appeared, but when he looked back it would turn into a boat. This was the limit of what Lu Yin could do at his current realm. If he wanted to transform it further, he would have to break through to progenitor realm. Lu Yin was looking forward to testing out the boat, and his opponent was naturally Fengbo. It would be a pity if he didn't use a good sparring partner like Fengbo. After a long period of time, Lu Yin finally stabilized the light and was able to shape it into a boat. He could now test it out with Fengbo. Rushing out of the bamboo forest, Lu Yin confirmed Fengbo's location with Hongyan Mavis's guidance. Old man, let's fight. Senior Hongyan won't make a move. Let's see if I can kill you or if you can kill me. Kid, you're courting death. Fengbo said this, but he didn't make a move. It wasn't like he hadn't fought Lu Yin before, and Lu Yin definitely wouldn't be able to defeat him. However, it was also impossible for him to defeat Lu Yin. Lu Yin understood his methods all too well, and this kid also used the power of time. He was the most difficult opponent to deal with, so he didn't want to fight. However, while Fengbo didn't make a move, Lu Yin did. Hongyan Mavis gave Lu Yin some grass so that he wouldn't have to worry about being corroded by the fog. He sent out a palm strike in a certain direction and then unleashed a barrage of attacks. His arms had been exhausted from the previous battle, but now that they had recovered, he felt even more powerful than before. Fengbo was forced out to battle Lu Yin. The two of them understood each other's methods, but they couldn't touch each other even after fighting for a long time. They either spread out their strength or staggered their attacks. Fengbo angrily, Kid, don't think that you can stall me. You can't find me if I want to escape. Do you really think you can kill me if you work with that woman? Stop dreaming. Lu Yin did not reply as the flowing light shuttled back and forth around his body. Fengbo was very wary of the flowing light as it could be reversed for 1 second, which coincidentally countered his innate gift. Whoever used it first would be at a disadvantage. Kid, if you're willing to help me kill that woman, I can guarantee that you'll become an existence only second to the sole true God of the Eternals. I can guarantee you with my life that with your talent, you'll definitely be able to reach the primordial realm under the guidance of the sole true God. You'll be free and unfettered and you'll have hope for eternal life. Why do you have to remain a human? The Count of Wind called out. Lu Yin chuckled. Old man, don't tell me you still think I've joined the Eternals? If the Fengbo knew about Lu Yin's situation in the outside world and that he had been personally killed by the only true God, he would definitely not waste his breath. How could such a person betray humanity? However, Count of the Wind didn't know that he had remained in the Mirage domain all this time. He's so young but his brain is too dead. How many years has the universe been operating normally? How long has it been since the birth of mankind? Before the human race there were various civilizations and living creatures. All living creatures were born naturally from the universe. Only by jumping out of the universe's shackles could they do so. Only by breaking through the limits of living creatures can you taste eternal life. Don't you want to see what the universe will be like after the human race is destroyed? Don't you want to be a creator? Can you create a civilization? Old man, if the human race is gone, you won't even have someone to talk to. Right? Do you have any descendants? Do you have any descendants? It seems like you don't need them. Wait for the next human race to appear, then you can go be a creator. Lu Yin watched as the Count of Wind expanded time, and a streak of light shot out. It transformed into a boat that swam freely through the expanding time, easily passing through it and slamming into the Count of Wind. The Count of Wind watched as a blurry boat slammed into him, but he didn't know what it was. He brought his fingers together and struck out. This strike had heavily injured Lu Yin, almost causing him to lose the ability to fight. At this moment the finger struck out again, piercing through the boat. For some reason the boat appeared outside of the expanding time. Even Lu Yin hadn't expected it to dodge so easily. Just as he was about to order the boat to retreat, it did so as if the time it had retreated had never existed. It could now teleport. The Count of Wind's attack missed and he stared at the boat. What was that? The boat slammed into the Count of Wind once more. The Count of Wind attacked again and again, but he was evaded time and time again. Lu Yin kept trying to see what the boat could do. Gradually the Count of Wind realized that this bastard was using him to practice. This kid already had the power of time, and now he was developing it in a metamorphosing direction, just like the Count of Wind had when he'd first created Candlelight. No, he couldn't let this kid succeed. The Count of Wind didn't want to fight anymore and he kept retreating. Even with Hongyan Mavis guiding him, Lu Yin gradually lost track of the old man. Forget it, I can't fight anymore. Lu Yin returned to the bamboo forest. How is it? Hongyan Mavis was curious. She also wanted to know what abilities the boat had. Lu Yin smiled wryly as the light around his body shuttled back and forth, occasionally transforming into a boat that was becoming more and more exquisite. There's nothing special about it. It's just that it's not restricted by time. Hongyan Mavis' eyes went wide and she looked at Lu Yin as if he were a monster. That's nothing special. If it's not restricted by time, then it might be possible to go against the flow of time in the future. Lu Yin smiled. That's why I'm not disappointed. Hongyan Mavis was speechless and she felt an urge to beat this kid up. This kid's words were quite infuriating. Was his power really that special? Since he couldn't beat the Count of Wind, Lu Yin could only continue cultivating the True God's Freedom technique. However, the True God's Freedom technique was too difficult to cultivate, and he rarely encountered a power that was so difficult to cultivate. He didn't know where to start. Perhaps the True God's Freedom technique wasn't suitable for him. Senior, keep an eye on him. Don't let him escape, Lu Yin reminded. Hongyan Mavis replied, don't worry, he won't be able to escape unless he dares to go to one of the forbidden areas. A while later Lu Yin opened his eyes. He was exhausted and he still couldn't cultivate it. He knew that he might need to use his divine power, but he didn't have the confidence to do so in front of Hongyan Mavis. Hongyan Mavis wasn't like ancestor Lu Yuan and the others, who trusted him unconditionally. She might seem to get along well with him, but that was only because she was certain that he was from the Lu family and wanted to kill the Count of Wind. Once the fact that he had divine power was exposed, she might not treat him like this anymore. She was a ruthless person who had trapped herself in the Mirage domain for countless years. In her opinion, she would use her broken body to hold back as many people as she could. As someone who cultivated divine power, if she didn't trust him, he would definitely be held back. Lu Yin sighed at this thought. What's wrong? Hongyan Mavis's voice sounded. With Lu Yin here, her days were much better. At least she had someone to talk to. She had been trapped here for so many years and it was too uncomfortable. Lu Yin didn't dare to tell her the truth. He thought about it and said, "The problem with fighting that old man is that I can't see the sequence particles. Senior, you can't warn me in time, so I can't break through his expanding void and deal an effective blow to him." Hongyan Mavis was helpless. You can only see them when you reach the level of sequence law. It's normal that you can't see them, but it's good enough that you know about them. Lu Yin smiled bitterly. I've seen them before. Hongyan Mavis was surprised. You've seen them? How did he see it? You can see them too? Lu Yin looked at her. I got Wu Tian's celestial eye, so I can see them. Hongyan Mavis was shocked. Wu Tian's celestial eye? How did you get his celestial eye? Shouldn't it be on him? Lu Yin asked. Senior, when you arrived at the Mirage, where was Wu Tian? Hongyan Mavis said, I don't know. There were battles everywhere. It seems that you don't know that Wu Tian was betrayed. Lu Yin had talked to Hongyan Mavis before and told her about Wu Tian's current situation. He wanted to know why Wu Tian didn't leave the Third Calamity region, but Hongyan Mavis didn't know either. Hongyan Mavis only knew that Wu Tian was imprisoned in the Third Calamity region. She didn't know that Wu Tian had lost his celestial eye and didn't know what had happened in the past. Lu Yin didn't know about those things either. He only knew that Wu Tian was betrayed by Old Monster. Too many things have happened outside. I'm staying here because I hope that one day they will come. Hongyan Mavis sighed. Actually, when you told me that Wu Xing had become one of the 7 sky gods, I didn't believe it. How could Wu Xing betray Wu Tian? Lu Yin was curious. Senior, you don't believe that Wu Xing would betray humanity? Hongyan Mavis shook her head. I believe that he would betray humanity. Wu Xing is mentally unstable. He's sometimes sleepy and sometimes crazy. That's why Wu Tian named him Wu Xing. He might betray humanity, but he definitely wouldn't betray Wu Tian. Wu Xing has a father-son relationship with Wu Tian. Whether he's sleepy or crazy, he respects Wu Tian. We can see that he shouldn't have betrayed Wu Tian. But before he died, he said that he wanted to kill Wu Tian. This was also something that Lu Yin didn't understand. Wu Tian was imprisoned in the Third Calamity region. As one of the 7 sky gods, why would the immortal deity want to kill Wu Tian? Hongyan Mavis looked at Lu Yin seriously. Maybe he wants to free Wu Tian. Lu Yin's gaze was shocked and filled with confusion. Hongyan Mavis smiled. I'm just guessing. I don't think it's true. However, based on my understanding of Wu Xing, this child does things differently from normal people. Normal people might think of ways to save Wu Tian, but he might want to free Wu Tian and kill Wu Tian. Lu Yin pondered. It was not impossible. Before the immortal deity died, he had said that he was a traitor to humanity. However, he had never said that he had betrayed Wu Tian. Before he died, he even taught Lu Yin how to reverse time. Why would he do that? Even before he died, he reminded Lu Yin that Wu Tian was in the Third Calamity region and to be careful of Wei Nu. Perhaps, as Hongyan Mavis had guessed, he really wanted to free Wu Tian. Chapter 31-24. Right, Lu Yin thought of Jade. The first time he had met her, she had wanted to kill Wu Tian and had tried many times to test her battle technique. Was that really the case? Lu Yin had seen Fei's swordsmanship before, and it was within the sky of martial arts. Fei should not have been able to see the sky of martial arts. Even if Di Qiong used all of his methods, he should not have been able to see the sky of martial arts. That was a kind of understanding that could not be taken away. If Jade really had seen it, then it was very likely that Wu Tian had allowed her to see it and had even given her advice. Then could she have done the same thing as the undying god to free Wu Tian? Lu Yin thought of many things. Some people might not be able to see what they were doing, but that didn't mean that they weren't doing anything. Huiwu was the same. He knew that he was going to die, but he still stayed in the first zone of disaster. Lu Yin didn't know what he was planning. Lu Yin felt a little irritated as he thought of this. He desperately wanted to have the power to suppress everything and kill his way into the zone of disaster. He wanted to take care of Wu Tian and the rest, Take care of the 3 highnesses and 6 vastnesses, and restore peace to this universe. Hongyan Mavis kept staring at Lu Yin's forehead, as if she wanted to see the traces of the celestial eye. Lu Yin stopped thinking about it and put away his heavy heart. Seeing Hongyan Mavis staring at his forehead, he couldn't help but touch it. Senior, there's no need to look. It's gone. What happened? Hongyan Mavis asked. Lu Yin explained, I was sent here by the progenitor and you should know that. The reason why I was sent here, or rather, the reason why I was able to meet the progenitor was because the celestial eye was destroyed by the sole true God. In order to save my life, the progenitor replaced the celestial eye with his weapon, First Dust. That's why it's gone. Here. Lu Yin pointed at his forehead. There's an extra First Dust. Hongyan Mavis couldn't remember how many times she had been surprised by Lu Yin, and today she was surprised again. You have Master's First Dust on your forehead? Lu Yin nodded. Yes, if not for it, I would have died. Hongyan Mavis moved closer until she was only a few centimeters away from him, and he could smell her fresh fragrance. Hongyan Mavis stared intently at Lu Yin's forehead. You're quite mysterious to be able to encounter something like this. Do you know how much Master values Chuchen? Very, very much. If he's willing to give Chuchen to you, then you must be Master's illegitimate son. The more she thought of it, the more she became suspicious. Of course not, Lu Yin answered helplessly. Hongyan Mavis suddenly thought of something and asked, By the way, since I gave you Chuchen, did Master give you a name? Lu Yin blinked. No. Hongyan Mavis did not believe him. That's impossible. This is Master's hobby. He thinks that it's easy to raise a lowly person. The more he cares about someone, the more he will give them a lowly life. This is his obsession. Lu Yin calmly replied, No. Tell me, what is your name? Senior, did Ancestor Mao Ding give me a name? Absolutely. Then what's your name? Open the red. Lu Yin raised an eyebrow. So straightforward. Hongyan Mavis didn't care. It sounds nice. What's your name? Lu Yin opened his mouth, unwilling to say anything. But under Hongyan's relentless questioning, he could only brace himself and say, Zhu Zi. Ever since Hongyan Mavis found out that the primogenitor had named Lu Yin Pillar, she had looked at Lu Yin with a strange gaze. It was funny, but she also seemed to be taking pleasure in his misfortune, which made Lu Yin very uncomfortable. However, she also told Lu Yin one thing. There had originally been only one continent in the Genesis space, and that was the first continent. The other 5 continents had been created by the primogenitor, and the core of each continent was Chuchen. After Lu Yin learned this, he sat in place for a long time, feeling as if he had grasped something and entered a state of enlightenment. The starry sky in his heart had gathered all sorts of powers, and any cultivation method that he had mastered would be able to inspire Lu Yin's cultivation. He wanted to create a power that belonged solely to him, but that did not mean that it was completely different from other cultivation methods. Chuchen was the core of the continent, and this reminded Lu Yin of the continent in the starry sky in his heart. That continent had been formed by the fates and the stars, time, wood, void, god power, monarch's aura, consciousness, divine power, and so on had all originated from that continent. Lu Yin used that continent as the foundation and the serious art as the shell. The power in his heart had long since transformed, forming a power that even Mr. Mu could not see the future of. Without a doubt, that continent was the foundation of everything. The starry sky in his heart had been formed because of the progenitor's sword, which had spread out the fates and formed it. Since the starry sky in his heart was a continent, could Lu Yin imitate the progenitor and give it a core? The progenitor had created the continent in the true starry sky, and the core was Chuchen. Lu Yin would use his mortal world as the core and create a core for the continent in his heart, allowing it to transform. This would not only transform the starry sky in his heart, but also the mortal world itself. When he thought of this, Lu Yin no longer hesitated. His mortal world appeared, and under Hongyan Mavis's astonished gaze, it entered his heart and appeared in the starry sky in his heart. It was like a meteor crashing into the continent, finally merging into the continent without a sound. In an instant, the continent in Lu Yin's heart underwent a change. Lu Yin could not describe the change, but it was as if it had been illusory before, but now it had become real, as if it had been the finishing touch. Under Hongyan Mavis's gaze, Lu Yin's silhouette seemed to become clearer. She stared at Lu Yin strangely. Why did she have such a feeling? Lu Yin was not fake, so why did she feel that he was clearer and more real? This clarity seemed to be incompatible with this space-time, and there was a strange sense of disharmony. At this moment, Lu Yin was staring at the starry sky in his heart. He could feel that the continent had changed, but how could he use it? Every time the starry sky in his heart was released, it would be isolated by the current space-time, resulting in a world of nothingness. That continent had never been battled before, so Lu Yin did not know how to fight it. Lu Yin sank into deep thought once more, and his aura continued to fade away. His entire body turned into a stone as he sat in front of the wooden house. Hongyan Mavis exhaled. Were children these days so powerful? Back when they had been cultivating under the guidance of their master, they had not been so obedient when they were young. They had not even competed with each other, and even if they talked about who cultivated faster and who cultivated slower, none of them actually cared. They had been carefree back then. However, this child from the Lu family had a worried expression on his face. Although he was smiling and talking, Hongyan Mavis could see that he was shouldering a heavy burden. How old was he? This child must have suffered a lot in the outside world. She could not help Lu Yin with his cultivation, so she could only tell him what she knew and give him pointers. The only thing she could do was keep Fengbo as a sparring partner. No matter what, Fengbo could not leave. He had to be a sparring partner. Hongyan Mavis glared at him. Her gaze was cold as she scanned the area outside. A very long time passed, but Hongyan Mavis did not keep track of time. She only saw a layer of dust on Lu Yin's body and a patch of grass on his head. Outside the bamboo forest, Fengbo did not appear, and the fog enveloped the entire mirage domain. On this day, Lu Yin suddenly opened his eyes. He had thought of visualization. That's right, visualization. Ever since he had landed in the mortal world, Lu Yin had been thinking about how to use it. No cultivation method was easy to achieve, and he had simulated countless battles in the starry sky where his heart was, especially when it came to land. However, he had given up in the end. Only now did he think of one method: visualization. The direct descendants of the Lu family visualized the fifth mainland. Since the fifth mainland could be visualized, then the continent in his heart could be visualized as well. There was no better way to use it than to directly visualize the continent in his heart. The more he thought about it, the more likely it seemed, and he hurriedly tried it out. Hongyan Mavis was about to speak, but she saw Lu Yin close his eyes again. She could only swallow her words and continue waiting. Another long time passed, and one day, Lu Yin suddenly stood up, giving Hongyan Mavis a fright. He did not say a word and simply walked out of the bamboo forest. When Hongyan Mavis saw this, she knew that he was going to fight Fengbo again, so she searched for his location and told him about it. Fengbo, who was hiding in the distance, saw Lu Yin walk out and his eyelids twitched. This kid was clearly using him as a sparring partner, and every time he fought it was different from the last. What had he learned this time? Fengbo had a feeling that he would be tortured to death by this kid sooner or later. No, I can't go out. He immediately left, not wanting to fight Lu Yin at all. Little 7, he's gone again. He's changed his location and he's... Lu Yin looked in a certain direction, but Fengbo had no intention of fighting. He kept moving away, and as soon as Lu Yin found his location, he would immediately leave. Lu Yin frowned. "Old man, why are you hiding? You're an absolute expert, the culprit behind the destruction of the second mainland, the one who toppled the Mavis divine tree, and the one who forced Hongyan Mavis of the three realms to hide in the mirage domain. Yet you don't even dare to fight me, a half-progenitor?" Fengbo glared at Lu Yin. "Kid, I'll let you know what it means to wish you were dead sooner or later." "Sooner or later? How about now? The more time I have, the faster my cultivation will improve. I don't mind telling you that I only cultivated for 100 years before entering the mirage domain," Lu Yin mocked. Fengbo's expression changed. 100 years. The more he thought about it, the more fearful he became. This child's cultivation talent was the best he had ever seen, and there was no comparison. He had experienced the most dazzling era of heaven above, the birth of the Eternals, the birth of the 3 pillars, the 6 boundless seas, and the 7 sky gods. He had also experienced the most extreme era of his own universe. He had experienced many things, but he had never seen someone as talented as Lu Yin. It was too terrifying. In just 100 years, Lu Yin had walked a path that others would have taken countless years to walk. This kid had to be killed. He had to be killed. Suddenly, Lu Yin appeared in front of Fengbo. After finding out where Fengbo was, Lu Yin had immediately used the reverse step to travel through time. Fengbo had been prepared for this and he expanded the void. This time he did not expand the flow of time as the boat formed from the stream of light could travel through time, which made him apprehensive. Fengbo only needed to expand the void and disperse the force. Fengbo immediately retreated as there was no way he could fight. Chapter 31-25. Lu Yin's eyes went wide as a giant shadow appeared above his head. Fengbo looked up in shock. A continent? What appeared above Lu Yin's and Fengbo's heads was Lu Yin's new visualization, the continent in his heart. The visualization was originally illusory, but it could increase one's own power. However, when Lu Yin released the starry sky in his heart, he isolated the surrounding spacetime. The moment the void world appeared, the continent in his heart also appeared and instantly fused with the visualized continent. Boom! There was a loud rumble that seemed to shake the entire mirage domain. Dust fell from the sky. It was real dust and that was a real continent. The continent crashed down, pressing down on Fengbo. Fengbo wanted to escape, but this continent could be large or small. If it was small, it could merge into Lu Yin's heart and become undetectable. If it was large, it would cover everything that Lu Yin had passed through in the mirage domain. Grass danced in the air from Hongyan Mavis, afraid that the fog would affect Lu Yin's strength. However, at this moment the fog was unable to affect him. No matter how much time passed, this continent was still a continent. Even the erosion of time was useless. Fengbo had nowhere to run, unless he went to a place that Lu Yin had never been to before. However, if he had wanted to go to such a place, he would have done so long ago. The enormous continent covered the mirage domain and crashed down. The void outside Fengbo's body continued to expand, and when the continent pressed down, the expanding void was compressed and constantly deformed. Inside, Fengbo coughed up blood with a savage expression. How could this be? How could a continent give him the feeling that he couldn't resist? Impossible. Even the collapse of the heavens wouldn't give him this feeling, let alone a continent. If this wasn't a continent, then what was it? What was this? Within the bamboo forest, Hongyan Mavis looked at the continent outside with shock. This was the path of the progenitor. She couldn't see Lu Yin's path clearly, but it was all-encompassing. Time's power wanted to go against the flow of time, and the mortal world had walked the path of the progenitor. Just how many people's paths did he want to walk? Just how much strength had he cultivated? If a person's cultivation path was too complex, they would only become more and more confused until they reached a dead end. However, Lu Yin's path seemed to have as many paths as possible. The progenitor's path was just one of many. It seemed like an ordinary continent, but it wasn't as simple as that. This was the power of the mortal world, the power that had created this continent. It was the origin of this continent. Only a continent could give birth to humans. Hippie said that the universe had first been born, and it had given birth to intelligent life forms like humans. Even in his dreams, Fengbo had never imagined that he would one day be pressed down by a piece of land to the point of coughing up blood and suffocating. Fengbo's god of the 9 heavens. The tower-shaped sword form Fengbo's long sword was stabbed into the ground, supporting the continent and gave him a chance to breathe. Fengbo's bodies, Fengbo's Lu Yin. Fengbo gritted his teeth and growled. He could not understand Lu Yin at all. This was the first time they had exchanged blows, and Lu Yin had been able to resist him, which was already the limit of what a half-progenitor could do. Lu Yin had used all sorts of powers, but the more they fought, the more Fengbo could not see through Lu Yin. What was going on with this kid? Lu Yin was separated by a great distance, but his boundless inner world appeared and collided with the threads of power. When things reached an extreme, they would move in the opposite direction. Fengbo had long since been prepared for this. He expanded the void horizontally, causing the space between him and Lu Yin to expand infinitely. This caused Lu Yin's punch to be scattered once more, and it continued to bombard the ground and the continent above him, causing the mirage domain to rumble. Lu Yin felt that it was a pity that he hadn't been able to suppress Fengbo. The continent's power still couldn't suppress Fengbo, and Lu Yin's power would still be scattered by Fengbo's innate gift. As the continent cracked open, Fengbo charged out of the continent's suppression and left. The continent slowly disappeared. Lu Yin stood in place and watched for a long time before returning to the bamboo forest. He had failed again. This old thing was indeed powerful, and he was no weaker than any of the 7 sky gods. Although he was a half-ancestor, his inner world was constantly transforming. His punch was far stronger than before, and it was enough to make the 7 sky gods cough up blood and not dare to take it head-on. The stream of light took the shape of a boat. Although it didn't have much offensive power, the scene of it traveling through time made Fengbo apprehensive, and he didn't dare to use the power of time. As for the mortal world, it fused with the continent, giving Lu Yin the ability to suppress everything. It seemed like he hadn't broken through, but in reality he had. However, he still couldn't suppress Fengbo. He needed to crush Fengbo's strength in an instant. Just a little bit more. What was missing? Lu Yin walked back to the bamboo forest and sat in front of the wooden house. Just a little bit more. Just a little bit more. To cultivators, this was like a natural chasm. They might be able to cross it, but they might never be able to cross it. Hongyan Mavis looked at Lu Yin and praised, "No half-ancestor has ever reached your level of strength. Little 7, you're the first in history. Even Master might not have reached your level of strength." Who would believe that a half-ancestor can suppress the experts of the 3 realms 6 Daos? Lu Yin smiled bitterly. "Senior, there's no need to comfort me. Fengbo definitely can't reach that level. Almost. Far from it. Ancestor Lu Yuan dared to fight the only true god, and the Eternal's 3 pillars were suppressed by Ancestor Lu Yuan. It seems like the Eternals have the 3 pillars to fight against the 3 realms 6 Daos, but in reality, Gu Yizhi is probably the only one who can rival the 3 realms 6 Daos. Aside from him, I feel like I can kill the other 3 pillars." Hongyan Mavis had a complicated expression. "Gu Yizhi? I didn't expect him to betray us. I don't know how strong the other 3 pillars are, but Gu Yizhi is very difficult to deal with as long as no one from the 3 realms 6 Daos acts. To be honest, he has the clearest cultivation plan among us. He wants to walk the path of humanity's limits, and he created the giant bloodline. He created the realm of mastery, and even Master praised him. He's a monster just by relying on the realm of mastery. Even now, we still don't know what he made up for with the primogenitor's scripture." Lu Yin's eyes trembled as he looked at Hongyan Mavis. "The primogenitor's scripture?" Hongyan Mavis nodded. "You should have learned it before. Your Lu family made up for the lack of spiritual force. Do you know why?" Lu Yin replied, "Because of the Light Gauze sword." "You know quite a lot." "That's right. Fertile Earth's attitude towards the Light Gauze sword was bad, and the Light Gauze sword attacked Lu Tianjing and used his spiritual force to suppress your Lu family's strength. No one knows the real result of that battle, but from then on, your ancestor Lu Yuan shamelessly begged Master for the primogenitor's scripture to make up for his lack of spiritual force." Hongyan Mavis recalled the past once more. "Speaking of which, we guessed that the Light Gauze sword had won that battle, but Fertile Earth refused to admit it and insisted that it was a draw. Who knows? He cares about his reputation the most." "Senior, do you know what the primogenitor's scripture made up for?" Lu Yin asked. Hongyan Mavis nodded. No, he didn't say. Lu Yin was apprehensive. He had forgotten that the ancient gods also knew the primogenitor's scripture. As the disciple of the primogenitor, anyone in the 3 realms 6 Daos would know the primogenitor's scripture. The primogenitor's scripture was an all-encompassing technique, and Lu Yin felt that it was similar to the starry sky in his heart. Could make up for whatever one lacked. If the Lu family could make up for spiritual force, then what did the ancient gods do? The ancient gods had never revealed the power of the primogenitor's scripture. This person's strength would continue to grow. He was the head of the 7 sky gods, and he was undoubtedly the strongest of the 3 pillars and 6 limitless. There was no need to worry about the ancient gods right now, so Lu Yin looked out of the bamboo forest. "Just a little bit more. My inner world is clearly transforming, and it's no different from breaking through, so why is it so close?" "Breaking through?" Hongyan Mavis asked. Lu Yin shook his head. "It's not time for that yet. My inner world has already transformed once, and it's equivalent to breaking through, but it still can't suppress Fengbo." Hongyan Mavis asked, "Is there a connection between transforming and breaking through?" Lu Yin did not understand. Hongyan Mavis looked at Lu Yin's heart. "To be honest, your strength is unimaginable. Others' inner worlds only grow stronger, but you can transform and walk a new path. It's amazing, but it doesn't mean that you've broken through. What's the biggest difference between a half-ancestor and an ancestor?" Lu Yin blurted out, "Vitality." Hongyan Mavis smiled, but she did not say anything else. Lu Yin thought of something. Yes, vitality. Any cultivator with enough talent could cultivate to the half-ancestor level, and a half-ancestor would be able to cultivate an inner world. However, breaking through to ancestor required an item of origin. Breaking through 3 stages required an item of origin. This was the step to breaking through to ancestor. With the appearance of sequence laws powerhouses, followed by the primordial realm and bitter disaster, Lu Yin had almost forgotten that breaking through to ancestor required 3 stages and an item of origin. He had already done all of these, so there were no obstacles. However, these were the differences between a half-ancestor and a progenitor. His inner world had indeed transformed, but it did not have any vitality, which was completely different from breaking through to ancestor. In order to truly break through to ancestor, vitality was indispensable. That was the true progenitor realm. While Elder Chan's ancestral world did not have any life, that was because there was vitality, not life. Xiaxinji's ancestral world had a sword-shaped creature, and while Elder Chan's path did not have any living creatures, there was vitality, which came from an item of origin. No matter how much his inner world transformed, it did not have any vitality, which was fundamentally different from breaking through to ancestor. Yes, it was just a little bit more. But how could he make his inner world have vitality? Lu Yin sank into deep thought once more. Outside the bamboo forest, Fengbu's sense of danger grew stronger and stronger. Lu Yin attacked again, and each attack was stronger than the last. He was basically a monster and there was no way to escape. Waiting here was equivalent to waiting for death. No, I can't wait. I have to leave. I have to leave. Either way I'll die. Fengbu thought about it and then headed in a certain direction. Within the bamboo forest, Hongyan Mavis suddenly stood up and looked outside, a strange expression on her face. Lu Yin saw her. "Senior, what's wrong?" Hongyan Mavis said in a low voice. Fengbu went to the forbidden area. Chapter 31:26. Hearing this, Lu Yin was shocked. "Is this a place that even you don't want to go?" Hongyan Mavis nodded. "Master told us to come to the Mirage Domain to break through to the Ancestor Realm. We have all succeeded, but we still came here because of the incredible phenomena in these regions. We all want to explore them, but they are too dangerous. Even Master said that there are some regions that we can't touch." That old guy had nowhere else to go, so he went to the forbidden area. Lu Yin was curious. "What's in the forbidden area?" Hongyan Mavis looked at Lu Yin. "You can go and take a look once you've truly broken through. You should be able to protect yourself then, but you can't say for sure." Back then, Nyo could have broken through, but she mysteriously went to a forbidden area. When she came out, she stopped breaking through and scattered her cultivation to start anew. She could have been the first person to break through among all of us. Destiny. Lu Yin was shocked. Hongyan Mavis said solemnly, Nyo is the most talented cultivator that Master has ever acknowledged in front of us. She was the first to break through the ancestral barrier and the second to come to the Mirage Domain. However, after going to the Forbidden Land once, she dispersed all of her cultivation. It was also after her that all of us were full of fear of the Forbidden Land and never went there before breaking through the ancestral barrier. Even Brother Chi was frightened at that time. He was a cautious person, and even though he was the first to come here, he didn't go to the forbidden area. Thinking about it still scares him. What happened to Destiny in the forbidden area? Lu Yin couldn't help but ask. Hongyan shook her head. She didn't say, but the power she cultivated helped her become Destiny. Lu Yin looked outside the bamboo forest. The forbidden area was the Mirage. This place hadn't been created by the progenitors, but had been forcibly left behind by them. This place's history might be even older than the first human, as it existed in the River of Time. You don't have to think about the forbidden area right now. Don't go there before you break through. That old guy Fengbo knows about the legends of the forbidden area, so he didn't go there. However, he was forced into a corner and could only escape there. Continue cultivating, Xiaoqi. Although I can't affect the forbidden area, it won't be easy to leave the Mirage either. Lu Yin nodded and stopped thinking about it. He focused on researching his own strength and thinking about how to make up for his lack of vitality. As long as he could make up for it, then he would have the strength to fight head-on and even kill a 7 sky gods. This was a true metamorphosis. It was equivalent to breaking into the Ancestor Realm without breaking into the Ancestor Realm. After a while, Hongyan Mavis's eyes flashed and the corners of her mouth curled up. Beside the great river of time, Fengbo was breathing heavily, his eyes filled with disbelief. Half of his body was covered in blood, seriously injured. I pushed down the Mavis divine tree. That's my fault. But I'm also not wrong. I'm not from this universe. What does it have to do with me? I only participated in the war. So, why should I be blamed? I will not die. I will leave this place alive. I have done what I promised eternity. I want to leave. I want to leave this universe. Hongyan Mavis looked out of the bamboo forest. She didn't know what had happened to Fengbo, but from the looks of it he seemed to have suffered a great blow. However, it was impossible for him to leave. Forget about what he had done in the past. The countless beings of the second continent would never agree to that. Fengbo spent the rest of his time frantically searching for a way to leave the mirage. However, it was difficult for him to leave. Hongyan, why are you so persistent? Your persistence is useless. Let me go, and I promise that I won't tell the Eternals that you're still alive. I won't participate in this war anymore. This universe's war has nothing to do with me. Let me go. Hongyan Mavis's gaze was cold. There is karma in this world. You have to bear the consequences of your actions. Don't you care about the current you? What happened in the past can't be changed. What you need to do is live. Do you want to be captured by the Eternals like Wu Tian and live a life worse than death? Or do you want to be dismembered like the Grim Reaper? Fate doesn't dare to appear. Gu Yizhi betrayed us, and the 3 realms and 6 Daos have done nothing. Hongyan, there's no point in fighting me to the death. Hongyan Mavis looked at the floor of the wooden hut. Every word seemed to be saying, I believe that I'll see them again sooner or later. Didn't you stay in the mirage for so long because you wanted to kill me as well? You're too stupid. Humans are no match for the Eternals, Fengbo roared. Lu Yin suddenly opened his eyes. That's not important. As long as you live with dignity, you won't have lived in vain. I also believe that the humans will win. Unfortunately, you won't live to see that day. He then walked out of the bamboo forest. Hongyan Mavis looked at Lu Yin's back and sighed. Was this the 4th or 5th time? He was transforming every time, and each time he was getting closer to killing Fengbo. This time it really was over. Lu Yin walked out of the bamboo forest and looked towards the river of time. Fengbo saw him as well, and his eyes widened. Brat, do you really think that you can kill me as a half-step ancestor? What a joke. Nothing like this has ever happened before. Lu Yin's expression was calm, and he looked at Fengbo as if he was looking at a dead man. Humans walk their own path, and their greatest weapon is their intelligence. The Eternals believe that emotions are their greatest weakness, and today I'll kill you because of them. He then visualized a continent, and at the same time, a continent appeared in the sky above his heart. It overlapped with the visualized continent, and the mirage trembled once more as it covered the sky and pressed down on Fengbo. Even so, it was still impossible to kill Fengbo. Just as the continent crashed down, the wordless heavenly book appeared and bloomed. Light scattered across the continent, and Hongyan Mavis and Fengbo watched in disbelief as the continent transformed. Headmaster, we believe that you're not dead. Headmaster, come back alive. Headmaster, Headmaster, countless voices echoed in the air. These were the prayers of countless people from the 5th mainland. They were transmitted through the wordless heavenly tome to Lu Yin's ears, and they were transmitted to the entire continent. They were using their prayers as spirits to bring vitality to the continent. Hongyan Mavis' mouth fell open. How could this be? Fengbo's face paled. Emotions were the weaknesses of humans, but this shouldn't be. These were clearly weaknesses, and those were just ordinary people. The difference between a half-ancestor and an ancestor was vitality. Lu Yin hadn't broken through to the ancestor realm, so he couldn't bring life to the continent. Even the mortal world was useless. However, the wordless heavenly book was vitality, and it represented the entire 5th mainland. It even represented the primordial space. Lu Yin could expel anyone and prevent anyone from being recognized by the primordial space. Didn't the wordless heavenly book represent the will of everyone in the 5th mainland? What was a living being? The wordless heavenly book was the greatest vitality in the universe. As long as someone recognized Lu Yin and prayed to him, they could bring him life. Power. Everything he had done in the past had paid off. The people of the 5th mainland wouldn't give up on him, and even if he died, they would pray for him to come back alive. No matter how the Eternals tried to incite them, the people of the 5th mainland would always be loyal to Lu Yin. They would bring life to the continent. The continent crashed down, pressing down on Fengbo. Fengbo expanded the void, but it was instantly crushed. He roared, "Brat, no one can kill me as a half-ancestor. Impossible. Don't even think about creating history. I'll fight you to the death." Fengbuo's body cracked open and blood seeped through his skin. The god of defense appeared once again, and each time it appeared, Fengbuo would be severely injured. However, he had no other choice in the face of danger. The tower-shaped long sword slashed down at the continent. There was a loud bang, but this time the continent didn't collapse. It was filled with vitality, making up for the slightest bit, and the long sword was pressed down. Fengbuo knelt on one knee, his hair disheveled. He looked like an evil spirit, and his eyes were filled with endless hatred. He mourned and cursed, and his blood splashed onto the long sword. The long sword split apart, forming a tower that protected him. Blood flowed along the tower, dyeing it scarlet. The continent couldn't press down for a while. Fengbuo smiled bitterly. "Brat, you'll never be able to kill me. Let's see how much time you have left in this mirage. The difference between you and me isn't just a small gap. It's a gap that can never be closed." The continent couldn't crush the tower. Hongyan Mavis clenched her fists. She hadn't expected Fengbuo to have such a trick up his sleeve. He was using his own blood to make the tower indestructible. This was Fengbuo's trump card, and he hadn't even used it during the Second Mainland's War. However, he hadn't been forced to this extent at that time. This was a defensive power, not an attack. Lu Yin calmly watched as Fengbuo mocked him. Had he not expected this? Of course he had. Which one of the 7 sky gods didn't have a trump card? The corpse goddess hadn't even used her trump card when she fought against the Grand Empyreans. She would only use it when she was truly in a life-or-death situation. Fengbuo was the same. "I want to see if that little bit really can't be made up for. Old man, watch carefully." Lu Yin raised his hand, and it seemed to overlap with the continent that was suppressing Fengbuo. The earth was below and the sky was above. Now that the earth was in the sky, he would use the overturning sky palm. If he wanted to overturn the sky, he would have to press down on this continent. This continent had already suppressed Fengbuo for so long that it could almost kill him. How strong would the power to overturn this continent be? This was the overturning sky palm. The overturning sky palm was an intent realm battle technique that belonged to Lu Yin. The continent also belonged to Lu Yin, and everything belonged to Lu Yin. He could move the earth in the sky, and he could also overturn it. Fengbuo looked up in shock, and an indescribable chill caused his mind to go blank. Lu Yin still had a trick up his sleeve? Boom. The continent disappeared, and in its place was a palm print that covered the sky and flipped it over. It also shattered the blood-stained tower. That little bit had finally been made up for. Fengbuo looked up at the constantly cracking tower and howled in despair. "Impossible. You're just a half-ancestor. How can you make up for the gap between us? That's impossible. Impossible." The tower shattered and Fengbuo spat out a mouthful of blood. His entire body had endured an indescribable weight, and all of his bones and meridians had shattered. His cultivation, battle techniques, strength, and innate gifts had all been shattered. Chapter 31-27. Fengbuo stood there in a daze, his eyes unfocused. His entire body shrank as his body slowly collapsed. Lu Yin panted heavily as beads of sweat dripped from his forehead and flowed down his arms. The overturning sky palm had pushed him to his limit. Overturning that continent was easier said than done, as that was a power that could make up for the gap between him and the 7 sky gods. If this palm still couldn't kill Fengbuo, then Lu Yin would truly be powerless and would have to break through to the ancestor realm. Fortunately, the gap had been closed in the end. Hongyan Mavis walked out of the bamboo forest and looked at Lu Yin in amazement. From this moment onwards, this child had truly reached their level. Since ancient times, who would have dared to imagine that a half-ancestor would be able to reach this level? Even her master had never imagined that someone would reach this level in the future. Once this child broke through to the progenitor realm, what kind of scene would that be? Who in this universe would be able to fight against him? Perhaps only those old freaks who had undergone bitter adversity would be able to resist him. Lu Yin walked towards Fengbuo step by step. At this moment, Fengbuo was like a lamp that had run out of oil, and he couldn't even use the slightest bit of strength. He lay on the ground as if he were dead, mumbling something. Lu Yin was shrouded in shadows as he looked down at Fengbuo from above. Hongyan Mavis also walked over and looked at Fengbuo. She had been trapped in the mirage domain by this person for so many years, and now it was finally over. "I can't accept this. I shouldn't have lost. This universe is restricting me. My soul has many transformations and I still have the ability. I can't accept this, I can't accept this, I can't accept this. Luyin looked at Fengbo. Do you regret betraying the second mainland? Fengbo acted as if he hadn't heard Lu Yin's words and he continued to speak in a low voice. His conviction had been completely crushed. If Lu Yin had been a sequence law expert, even a progenitor, he would not have reacted in such a manner. However, Lu Yin was just a half-ancestor. To him, a half-ancestor was like an ant. Even the servant who had watered the Mavis divine tree with him had only reached this level of cultivation. How could a mere half-ancestor defeat him? How? Lu Yin looked at Hongyan Mavis and she walked over. Old Fengbo. Fengbo's eyes trembled as they focused on Hongyan Mavis. The vengeance of my Mavis clan has been avenged. Hongyan Mavis slowly said. Fengbo looked at Hongyan Mavis, and his originally bewildered expression changed to one of insanity. He let out a terrifying laugh. Report? Where should I report it? I'm just a chess piece. What will truly destroy your Mavis clan is eternity, a race destined to rule the universe in the future. Hongyan, from the moment you accepted me into the Mavis clan was destined to disappear, and so was humanity. I haven't lost. I'm just leaving first. Whether it's you or that brat, you'll follow in my footsteps. You don't understand, you can't see and you can't see. Hongyan Mavis had a complicated look in her eyes. The humans can have the Eternals as their mortal enemy, but the Eternals also need the humans as their mortal enemy. These words caused the smile on Fengbo's face to disappear. He seemed to have thought of something. He opened his mouth and let out a shrill cry. Eternal, you lied to me. Lu Yin frowned and looked at Hongyan Mavis in confusion. Hongyan Mavis no longer spoke and walked towards the river of time. Lu Yin's gaze landed on Fengbo once more and he raised a hand. He had decided to end this man's life while he was at it. Fengbo was not a corpse king, which meant that Lu Yin could choose a general. With Lu Yin's current strength, he should be qualified to take on such a powerhouse. Once a peak expert like Fengbo appeared, Lu Yin would be able to face off against one of the 7 sky gods alone without knowing their methods. He would still be able to put up a fight. Fengbo shrieked and cursed the only true god with hatred. Lu Yin's palm landed, ending Fengbo's life. Fengbo's shrieks disappeared and the mirage domain returned to normal. Lu Yin exhaled, it was finally over. He had a complete understanding of Fengbo's methods, and he had only won after many intense battles. If not for Hongyan Mavis, then even if he had the strength to win, Fengbo would definitely have been able to escape. Lu Yin did not underestimate any of the 7 sky gods, as such powerhouses were rather difficult to deal with. The Fengbo appeared. In my name, Fengbo. Boom. Lu Yin's brain buzzed, and before he could even react, he had already fallen to the ground and lost consciousness. Hongyan Mavis was shocked. Little 7. She hurriedly checked on Lu Yin, only to see that he was bleeding from his 7 orifices. His originally black hair had turned white. What was going on? It was just a Fengbo. Had he suffered a backlash? Hongyan Mavis brought Lu Yin into the wooden house in the bamboo forest and put him down. She checked him again and found no injuries, but he was still unconscious. No matter how she looked at it, he had suffered a backlash. She knew about the Lu family's Fengbo's ability, and she also knew that once a Fengbo was chosen, he would suffer a backlash. However, Fengbo's strength had not exceeded his own by much, and he had been the one to defeat him from start to finish. Why had this happened? All Hongyan Mavis could do was wait for Lu Yin to wake up. This time he had been unconscious for even longer than the time he had spent in his epiphany and his transformation into the mortal world. Hongyan Mavis had visited him several times in an attempt to wake him up, but she had failed every time. That was until Lu Yin woke up on his own. Lu Yin had a dream in which the universe had shattered, and his entire body had been reduced to dust along with it. This feeling was excruciating and he had endured it more than once. He had endured this pain over and over again as if he would one day be reduced to dust along with the universe. He opened his eyes, but they were blurry. Little 7, how are you? Hongyan Mavis's voice traveled over, but he could not hear it clearly. It took a while for his vision to clear. Senior. Lu Yin opened his mouth, but his voice was hoarse. Hongyan Mavis helped him up and asked worriedly, Little 7, what happened? Did you suffer a backlash? Lu Yin was confused. I don't know either. Then how did you faint? It was Fengbo who was chosen. Hongyan Mavis continued. It seems to be a backlash. I heard from Fertile Earth that the Fengbua is easy to suffer from a backlash. If one chooses someone who is much stronger than them, the backlash will be very severe. Lu Yin was certain. It's not a backlash. I've experienced it before. When an emissary chose a half-ancestor, it didn't feel like this, but... He carefully thought about it and it seemed to be the same feeling again. But no matter how he thought about it, it should not have been. He had defeated Fengbua by himself and the gap between them should not have been that great. He should have been able to choose a Fengbua. He had defeated the Cyclops King with his previous strength, and now in the Mirage domain he had chosen Fengbua with his own strength. The gap between the two was about the same, and it was even more dangerous for him to choose the Cyclops King. After all, it was very difficult for him to defeat the Cyclops King alone. So why had he suffered a backlash? And even if it had, the consequences had been so severe that he had not even had time to react. Lu Yin suddenly thought of something and hurriedly looked at Hongyan Mavis. "Senior, where's Fengbua's corpse?" Hongyan Mavis did not understand why Lu Yin was asking this. "It's still here. Do you still want to choose a Fengbua?" Lu Yin shook his head and walked out of the wooden house. Fengbua's corpse was still in the same spot, untouched. Hongyan Mavis could not have brought Fengbua's corpse into the bamboo forest. Lu Yin looked at Fengbua's corpse again, but it had not changed much since the moment of his death. A single drop of blood from such a powerhouse was enough to crush the heavens, and his corpse would not decay so easily. Lu Yin wanted to look at Fengbua's forehead to see if it was the same as the negative karma. However, since Fengbua's corpse was still here, it was different from the negative karma. Lu Yin looked at Fengbua's corpse and was still confused. How could he have suffered such a severe backlash? Could it have been a problem with his cultivation? That could not be right either. The Cyclops King was a powerhouse who had comprehended the laws of the sequence, and his cultivation far surpassed Lu Yin's. "Senior, do you know where this Fengbua came from? I seem to have heard him mention more than once that he did not belong to this universe," Lu Yin asked. Hongyan Mavis shook her head. "The first time I met him was on the second continent. Before he betrayed the second continent, he never mentioned anything about not belonging to this universe. It was only when he revealed his identity and pushed down the divine tree that he revealed his true strength, especially the form of the god of the nine heavens. You saw it yourself. Even I might not have been able to break through his defenses easily. This person's cultivation method is completely different from ours." Lu Yin looked at Hongyan Mavis. "Parallel space-time?" Hongyan Mavis shook her head. "It doesn't seem like it. If it's a parallel space-time, then there shouldn't be any restrictions on one's strength. Do you remember what he said before he died? He said that his soul form could not be fully displayed. His unwillingness to die was because he could not display his full strength. A parallel space-time does not restrict one's strength, especially for a powerhouse like him. He has already walked his own path and does not need to rely on the strength he once cultivated." Lu Yin frowned. He was right. Progenitors were not limited by the strength they cultivated. For example, the people of the Fifth Mainland needed to absorb astral sources to fight before they reached the progenitor realm. Once they reached the progenitor realm, even if they did not walk their own path and still relied on astral sources, the boundless astral sources that the progenitor world absorbed were enough for them to fight in a parallel space-time. Then what did she mean by not belonging to this universe? Hongyan Mavis did not know and Lu Yin did not dwell on it. His head was still dizzy and he needed to rest. Not long after, Lu Yin looked at himself in the mirror and sighed. He smiled bitterly. "It's really serious this time. I seem to have aged a bit and I even have white hair." Hongyan Mavis smiled. "You're not old. White hair makes you look more mature." Lu Yin laughed. "I've never thought about what I look like when I'm old. With my current cultivation I can't live forever, but I won't age. Senior, do you want to leave?" Hongyan Mavis nodded. "I stayed here to delay Fengbua. Now that he's dead I should leave. However, I've lost most of my strength and I won't be able to help you much even if I leave." Lu Yin asked, "Why did you lose strength? Are you injured beyond recovery?" Hongyan Mavis sighed. "I lost the progenitor world. I lost the source of my strength." Lu Yin did not understand. "How can you lose the progenitor world?" Hongyan Mavis met Lu Yin's gaze. "One day when you reach a certain realm, any of your strength will be able to materialize. Master once said that he wasn't even sure if the universe we live in is someone else's progenitor world. Lu Yin's expression changed and he felt a chill. That joke isn't funny. Chapter 31:28. It's just a metaphor. Have you ever thought that the 5 continents all originated from the origin dust? That master created them? I never thought about it. I never dared to think about it. You have just embarked on the path of cultivation. Has anyone ever told you that cultivating on land is easier than cultivating in the starry skies to step into the ancestor realm? What can you comprehend? Land is extraordinary because it was created by Master. Cultivating on land is equivalent to coming into contact with Master's beginning. Each land has its own power system and the one who maintains these power systems is Master. Lu Yin finally understood. He recalled that someone had indeed told him that, especially after entering the Neoverse, many people wanted to cultivate on land. The stability of space on land was different and the 6th mainland was filled with land. Some people could only cultivate by grabbing onto some soil. Lu Yin hadn't understood at the time, and he didn't think that there was any difference between cultivating on land and in outer space. Now he understood. Land possessed the power of the origin dust. If land can be created, why can't space be created? Hongyan Mavis asked before looking into the distance. When you reach the progenitor realm, you can try coming to the forbidden area of the Mirage domain. It might exceed your imagination. Lu Yin brought the topic back. Senior, what is your ancestral world? If you lose it, can you cultivate it back? If Hongyan Mavis could recover her peak strength, then it would be great news for the human race. Hongyan Mavis smiled. Mavis Divine Tree. Lu Yin was shocked. Your ancestral world is the Mavis Divine Tree? Hongyan Mavis nodded. I haven't lost it. The Mavis family still has it. I planted it using the tree I once had so that the Mavis family would have a place to live if something happened to me. The real Mavis Divine Tree has been toppled and more importantly, the imprint of the tree is gone. It was stolen by that giant from the Everlasting Tribe. I can't take it back with my current strength and the Everlasting Tribe won't allow humans to attack them. Once they do, a war will break out. Lu Yin's lips curled up. You're talking about the corpse god, right? I was wondering why there were traces of the Mavis Divine Tree in his body. Don't worry, I'll definitely get it back for you. Hongyan Mavis was shocked. You can get it back? Yes. Then we'll have to go to war. Once I leave, the Eternals will most likely find out and they'll be able to guess what I'm up to. Then I'll snatch it back before you expose yourself. Lu Yin was confident. With his current strength, why wouldn't he be confident? The zombie goddess was no match for him in a one-on-one duel, let alone a group attack. After all, she was severely injured. Furthermore, he had a way to find the 6th disaster zone. More importantly, the Eternals did not know that his strength had undergone a transformation. He did not believe that he would not be able to snatch the Mavis Sacred Tree brand back. Hongyan Mavis became excited. As long as I can get the imprint back, I can use the current Mavis Divine Tree as my ancestral world, and recover at least half of my strength. Haha, it's a deal. Oh right, Senior, this junior is now the Tao Master of the Above Heaven sect. Hongyan Mavis rolled her eyes. Understood, Daoist Master. I hope that you, the sect above heaven, can return to the peak. Lu Yin's eyes lit up. I do have the idea of reorganizing the 3 realms and 6 paths. You should recuperate first. Lu Yin was very satisfied with the transformation he had experienced during his trip to the Mirage realm. He did not cultivate for a long time after that and instead just sat by the River of Time. He fished because he wanted to see those times that the River of Time could not tolerate. Looking at those scenes gave him a different feeling. After a long time he finally felt like he had recovered, but his white hair did not. He could turn it back to black, but that would be meaningless. He would just treat this as a lesson and not casually appoint anyone in the future. On this day, Lu Yin was still fishing in the River of Time. The water droplet was swallowed up by the flowing light, and an image appeared. A piece of paper. Lu Yin was puzzled. He looked at it carefully, but because the time was too short, he did not see anything. He continued fishing and another droplet appeared. So fast. This time a piece of paper appeared in the image. Lu Yin frowned, but this time the image was still very short. However, he still managed to see the word kill written on it. Kill. What did that mean? Just one word. Because the image was too short, Lu Yin only saw the word kill, but he was sure that there were no other words. Lu Yin continued fishing. A few seconds later he caught another droplet. This was strange. How could it be so fast? In the past he would have to wait a long time before fishing for something that could not be tolerated in the river of time. It was much longer than fishing, so how could it be so fast? As expected, it was still a piece of paper. Lu Yin was prepared for this, and this time he saw it clearly. It was indeed a single word, kill, but there were definitely other words behind it that had been smeared out. The smear was very obvious. The image disappeared and Lu Yin continued fishing. Over the next period of time he caught many more pieces of paper and they all had the word kill on them. Behind the word were smeared out as well. This made Lu Yin uneasy and he looked up at the river of time. Was someone from the past sending a message to the future? There was definitely a noun behind the word kill. Was it a person's name, a species, or something else? Why were they smeared out? Who could smear them? These pieces of paper could not be tolerated in the river of time, which meant that they had been written while time was still. If words could be smeared out in such a situation, then how powerful was the person who had smeared them out? This was not something that could be done simply by stopping time. If one could stop time and smear every piece of paper, then it was equivalent to cutting off a certain period of time. Lu Yin knew that he could not do such a thing. He continued fishing, but there was nothing else. It was as if the pieces of paper had flowed down the river and appeared at the same time, all for the sake of being seen by future generations. Lu Yin told Hongyan Mavis about this. Hongyan Mavis was shocked. Doing something like this is not something that can be done just by touching the grand force of time. One needs to have the ability to cut off time or even chase after the river of time. It's just like how you're trying to go against the flow of time. So what I'm trying to do is something that has been done for a long time? Lu Yin asked. There's more than one person who can do it. Anyone who's at the primordial realm and focuses on the grand force of time should be able to do it. Hongyan Mavis's expression was solemn. Lu Yin knew this. He did not think that his transformation of light would allow him to surpass the primordial realm. At the very least, he would have to reach the primordial realm himself before he could talk about surpassing the primordial realm. In other words, the person who smeared the paper was at least at the primordial realm, Lu Yin said. Hongyan Mavis fell silent for a moment before slowly replying, From what I know, there were only a few primordial realm experts in our era. I can't think of anyone who would do something like this, but they should all be able to do it. They should be able to do it. Right, there's another person who was around the same level as us, but she broke through to the primordial realm. She's Qing Luo Jiantian. Lu Yin was shocked. Qing Luo Jiantian reached the primordial realm in your era? Hongyan Mavis nodded. Do you know who erected that stone tablet beside the river of time? It's Qing Luo Jiantian. She reached the primordial realm in the Mirage Domain, which is why everyone who knows about the Mirage Domain is certain that one can reach the primordial realm here. Lu Yin knew that the ancestor of the past was very powerful. She had ended the war with a single sword strike. The Star Toad and the Grand Empyrean had both greeted her, but he had never thought that she would be so powerful. However, the strength that she had displayed so far did not seem to be at the primordial realm. Otherwise, Thunder Master Jiang Feng and the Grand Empyrean would not have been able to reach the Black Mother Tree so easily and draw out the true god. Something must have happened to the ancestor of the past. By the way, Senior, there's something that I don't quite understand. What's the difference between the primordial realm and the bitter adversity? Lu Yin asked. When he had first learned about the primordial realm and the bitter adversity from ancestor Lu Yuan, he had not thought too much about it. However, the more he came into contact with the primordial realm and the more he saw, the more confused he became. The Grand Empyrean was clearly undergoing the bitter adversity, and the sole true god was also undergoing the bitter adversity. Then what about the Lightning Master Jiang Feng? He had once called the sole true god and the others monsters undergoing the bitter adversity, but he was clearly stronger than a progenitor. Even the ancestor of the past had not been able to stop him, so what was he? Was he a primordial realm expert? What about ancestor Lu Yuan? He did not fear the Grand Empyrean, but he had never mentioned that he was undergoing the bitter adversity, nor had he mentioned whether he was a primordial realm expert. There was also the Star Toad. It had clearly been the unluckiest during the second battle in the bitter adversity. Hongyan Mavis explained, the primordial realm surpasses the progenitor realm. It's a definite realm, but undergoing the bitter adversity is a process. There is no definite bitter adversity realm. Before undergoing the bitter adversity, you can be called the bitter adversity realm because you're currently undergoing the bitter adversity. Even after you've passed the bitter adversity, you can still be called the bitter adversity realm. The bitter adversity is a long process, not a realm. It's like flying. If you fall, you'll fail. The only thing that can distinguish between them is their own battle prowess. The sole true God is very powerful, terrifyingly powerful, but he might still be in the process of rising. Tai Hong cannot compare to the sole true God, much less master, but she might have already fallen. No one can say for sure, so they all call it the bitter adversity realm, which is also the bitter adversity realm. After reaching the primordial realm, some people are unwilling to undergo the bitter adversity for the rest of their lives, because the bitter adversity comes from the heart. Master once said that the primordial realm and the bitter adversity are two different people. So far, the most certain thing is that no one has truly undergone the bitter adversity and reached eternal life. This is a concept, and because no one has reached it, they can only guess. Lu Yin finally understood. It was no wonder that the primordial realm and the bitter adversity were two different concepts. One was a realm while the other was a process. Then how can we tell if someone is undergoing the bitter adversity? Hongyan Mavis thought about it. There's no way to tell. Those above the progenitor realm have already surpassed it. Only they know that level, so don't let your thoughts be fixed. Everyone thinks that the sole true God is undergoing the bitter adversity, but perhaps he hasn't even undergone the bitter adversity and is still in the primordial realm? No one knows. Some people even say that the bitter adversity is a scam, and that there is no such thing as eternal life. Others say that eternal life is a connection between species. As long as the species is not destroyed, it is equivalent to eternal life. For example, if you reach eternal life, as long as the human race is not destroyed, you can appear and disappear at any time. There are also people who say that the universe itself is a creature with eternal life. Who knows? Lu Yin sighed. It all sounds reasonable. Chapter 31-29. Hongyan Mavis laughed. Of course it makes sense. Those who can speculate about immortality are at least in the progenitor realm. These people have been able to cultivate to the progenitor realm because they have experienced too much and had too many strange ideas. I also think that the mother tree is an immortal level creature because my ancestral world is the Mavis divine tree. Lu Yin agreed. That makes sense. Hongyan Mavis smiled and shook her head. There are many reasons. When you don't understand something, everyone else's words make sense. Only by trying to break through will you be able to verify it. Actually, most people in this universe who speculate about immortality are pessimistic. After all, immortality isn't a happy thing. You have to watch the people around you die one by one, and you have to bear more than anyone else. You even have to watch your own species disappear. Can you imagine what it's like to live with a bug forever? Lu Yin's face trembled and he felt a chill just thinking about it. There were no humans in this universe, only bugs. What was the use of immortality? He might as well die. Lu Yin's body had already recovered, and there wasn't much point in staying in the Mirage domain. It wasn't time for him to break through to progenitor yet. Senior, let's go. Hongyan Mavis looked around and sighed. We've lived here longer than in the second continent and we've developed feelings for this place. I hope that others won't ruin it. Lu Yin's heart skipped a beat. Senior, will we be able to return after we leave? Hongyan Mavis shook her head. Unless we find all the road signs, I won't be able to return. Of course, Master can send us in, but we'll have to find him first. Lu Yin felt helpless as that was quite a pity. He wanted to bring the entire above the heavens to cultivate in the Mirage domain, and when they all reached progenitor, he would be able to overwhelm the Eternals with numbers. Of course, that was just a thought. If that were possible, the primogenitor and Mr. Mu would have done it long ago. Time could change many things, but it also couldn't change many things. If a person couldn't live forever, they would only die of old age no matter how long they stayed in the Mirage domain. Not everyone could break through to progenitor. Lu Yin walked into the wooden house before leaving and looked at the words on the floor. He squatted down and wrote, "Little Seven is here. I hope to meet all of you seniors one day, Lu Yin." After writing, he walked out of the house. "Let's go, senior." Hongyan Mavis walked into the wooden house and looked at the words on the floor. She squatted down and read, "He is a newcomer. His name is Zhu Zi. Welcome newcomers, Hongyan." Once she was done, Hongyan Mavis walked out. Lu Yin was curious and wanted to go in to take a look, but she stopped him. "Let's go, what are you looking at?" "Senior, what did you write? What does that have to do with you?" Lu Yin pursed his lips. He really wanted to go in and take a look, but Hongyan Mavis dragged him away. By the way, Senior, if we leave now, won't you return to the era of the Above Heaven sect? The Mirage domain has its own flow of time. Although it is not in contact with the River of Time, your appearance means that the River of Time has flowed here. Any outsider can refresh the time in the Mirage domain because they came from the River of Time. Good. In the primordial space, Lu Yin tore through the void and walked out from the back mountain of the Sky Sect. He was surrounded by several people: Leng Qing, Lu Yun, and Elder Chan, Dao Master. They were overjoyed. Lu Yin was surprised. Seems that a lot of things have happened in my absence. As he spoke, Hongyan Mavis walked out from behind him. Everyone was stunned when they saw that Lu Yin had not died yet. How long had it been since he had recovered? And he had even brought back a woman? Hongyan Mavis walked out of the void and looked around. She took a deep breath. It feels good to be free. Lu Yin said to Hongyan Mavis, "You can walk around here. I have some matters to take care of and I'll bring you to Lu Tianjing soon." Hongyan Mavis nodded. "Go, don't worry about me. I'm not in a hurry to meet with fertile earth." "Lady Hongyan, you are Lady Hongyan?" Leng Qing recognized her and shouted excitedly. Hongyan Mavis looked at Leng Qing in surprise. Someone actually recognized her? Leng Qing looked at Hongyan Mavis. "Wait, it's me, Leng Qing. I once visited the Mavis family and you gave me some pointers." Hongyan Mavis looked at Leng Qing and thought for a while. She then realized something. "I remember now. You are the sect master of the Sky Sect, right?" Leng Qing was excited. "Really, is you? You're still alive?" "It's not surprising that I'm still alive, but how did you manage to survive until now?" Hongyan Mavis was puzzled. A group of people had gone missing and Leng Qing had been one of them. She had paid attention to this matter because the Mavis family's Dao disciple, He Luo Mavis, had also gone missing. Leng Qing's breathing quickened and he bowed solemnly. "Sect Master of the Sky Blade Sect, Leng Qing, greets the Sect Master." Hongyan Mavis was the master of the Second Mainland, and the Second Mainland had once had a Dao Source sect as well. Hongyan Mavis was curious. What happened back then? The Sect Master of the Sky Sect and a group of Dao disciples went missing. Lu Yin asked Leng Qing to bring Hongyan Mavis around the Arcana sect and explain what had happened back then. Although he had chatted with Hongyan Mavis in the Mirage, too many things had happened, and it was impossible for him to tell her everything. Leng Qing was excited. He was originally from the Second Mainland, and being able to converse with Hongyan Mavis was his dream come true. On the other side, Lu Yin arrived at the main hall. Wang Wen, Wei Rong, and the others were all present. Elder Chan, Lu Bujing, and the others were all gathered together to discuss recent events. Actually, it had not been long since Mr. Mu had taken Lu Yin away from the second region of Calamity, which was the time between when Mr. Mu had left and when Lu Yin had been sent into the Mirage by the primogenitor. After entering the Mirage, time had nothing to do with Lu Yin, and it was as if time had stopped. Everything that had happened in the Mirage seemed to take a long time, but in the outside world, it had happened in less than a second. Elder Chan and the others could not have imagined that the current Lu Yin was so different from the Lu Yin from before. Lu Yin quietly listened to them talk about recent events. Although it had not been long, many things had happened. After all, the outside world believed that he was dead, and whether or not something had happened had nothing to do with time. Lu Yin sat quietly and tapped his fingers on the table. There had been a spy in the Arcana sect that had destroyed the expedition of Calamity. The 9-star civilization Spacetime Stargate. More and more people from the Six-Way Society were dissatisfied with Lu Yin, and they were making wild guesses. Some even said that Lu Yin had deliberately caused Wood God and the others to be injured in order to occupy the Wood spacetime and the Void God spacetime. Someone in the Cosmic Tree had tried to assassinate people from the Lu family, including the cultivators from the Fifth Mainland who had gone to the Cosmic Tree. Madame Naylan had been sent back by Yi Xing. Several of Reverend Lotus disciples had provoked the Arcana sect and brought up the past. They wanted the Arcana sect to apologize to Yao Lan on Lu Yin's behalf and that Lu Yin had wrongly accused Yao Lan of being a spy. Many things had happened at the same time, and it seemed like the Arcana sect was being targeted by everyone. Of course, there were even more people who defended the primordial space. Wood God, Void Master, and Reincarnation had all spoken out in support of Lu Yin. The Bao Sage, Bodhi Sage, and even Shi Sage had sent a message, thanking Lu Yin for everything he had done for the human race and hoping that Lu Yin's death was just a rumor. Aside from the primordial space's cultivators, The ones who were most grateful and most protective of Lu Yin were the people from the Six-Way Society's parallel spacetime border battlefield and the Endless Battlefield. Lu Yin had been the one who had forced the Eternals to hole up in the First Calamity region, preventing them from entering the Samsara grindstone. Even though the Six-Way Society was filled with undercurrents, they were far from enough to overturn Lu Yin's prestige. Unless he truly died, his prestige would disappear with time. After hearing all of this, Lu Yin was not angry. Instead, he smiled. Now that's interesting. How can we solve problems without problems? These fellows are usually so respectful and obedient. Only they know what they're thinking. Wang Wen, think of a way to make the outside world think that I'm dead. Make it look good. I want to see who else will jump out. Wang Wen smiled. We've already done that. If your Highness' chess piece really dies, then there's nothing we can do. The Arcana sect can still protect itself unless the Eternals attack. If you're not dead, then it's good that all of the problems are exposed. Wei Rong said, actually many of these undercurrents were driven by us. Elder Chan could not help but glance at Wei Rong. This was too vicious. Even Wei Rong did not know about this. The Eternals were probably stunned as well. They had not expected the effects to be so good that it was unbelievable. So this was where the problem lay. Lu Yin stood up. If that's the case, then I'll disappear for a while and reappear when the time is right. Wang Wen reminded him, it won't be long. The Eternals suddenly destroyed the astral door to prevent us from contacting the extraterrestrial civilizations. Either that or they're focused on attacking the extraterrestrial civilizations, but that's unlikely. The extraterrestrial civilizations can definitely ask for help from us. The most likely possibility is that they'll destroy our Arcana sect in the shortest amount of time. What they're doing now is cutting off our external reinforcements. This battle will erupt very soon. Lu Yin looked forward to it. It's good. I want to see how much of our external reinforcements the Eternals can cut off. Six Direction Society? White Cloud City. Even if they want to cut off our external reinforcements, they'll have to pay a huge price. Lu Yin then left the main hall. He could leave the rest of the matters to Wang Wen and the others. He was going to take Hongyan Mavis to Lu Tianjing. After Lu Yin left, Elder Chan seemed to be lost in thought. Do you guys feel like the Path Master has changed? Lu Yin was surprised. You feel that way too? I thought it was just a misconception. Lu Bujing shook his head. It's not a misconception. I feel it too. It's like the entire person. How should I put it? He fell into deep thought. As one, Elder Chan said. Lu Bujing and Lu Yin exchanged glances. Yes, as one. Could it be that the Path Master has broken through to Progenitor? Lu Yin guessed. Lu Bujing glanced at Elder Chan, who smiled. Scope. Since the Path Master has returned, there shouldn't be any problems. The Eternal schemes have all been attributed to the Path Master's death. As long as the Path Master appears, everything will fall apart. Wang Wen was eager. I'm really looking forward to the Eternals seeing His Highness the chess piece again. It'll definitely be exciting. Wei Rong's gaze turned cold. I'm looking forward to it as well. Elsewhere, Lu Yin found Hongyan Mavis and Leng Qing. Leng Qing told Hongyan Mavis about how they had been sealed in ice. Hongyan Mavis also saw the ancestral tortoise outside the sect in the sky, as well as the Mavis divine tree on its back. Thank you. QZQ4418 Baidu brother. Thank you for your support. I'll update more. It's the first day of National Day. Brothers, be careful when you go out. Chapter 3130. Senior, do you want to meet your juniors first? Lu Yin asked. Hongyan Mavis replied, no need, let's go to Lu Tianjing. It's best not to let anyone know that I'm here. Lu Yin nodded. It won't be too late to do so after I get my power back. Alright, I'll take you to Lu Tianjing. Lu Yin and Hongyan Mavis soon left the Above Heaven sect. They headed towards the astral tree. Their speed was very fast, and in the blink of an eye, they arrived at the starry sky of trees. Looking at the mother tree in the distance, Hongyan Mavis became excited. I see it again, mother tree. Ever since we can remember, the mother tree has always been with us, apart from Master. I thought that the mother tree had been destroyed, but it's still here. Great. The mother tree isn't easy to destroy. The Fifth Mainland relied on it to resist the Eternals' attacks. Lu Yin couldn't understand Hongyan Mavis and the others' feelings for the mother tree, so he simply left and headed towards Lu Tianjing. Hongyan Mavis' eyes reddened as she silently followed Lu Yin. Seeing the mother tree was like seeing home. Lu Yin and Hongyan Mavis soon arrived at Lu Tianjing. Has Lu Tianjing changed? Hongyan Mavis asked. Lu Yin replied, the Lu family was exiled, so Lu Tianjing naturally changed. Hongyan Mavis had heard Lu Yin mention this before, so she nodded and silently followed him in. Lu Yin didn't make a big fuss when he returned, instead directly notifying Lu Tianyi. Lu Tianyi relaxed when he received Lu Yin's call. It was good that he wasn't dead. When he saw Hongyan Mavis, he bowed deeply. Junior Lu Tianyi greets Senior Hongyan. Hongyan Mavis sized him up. You're that Lu Tianyi? So many years have passed in the blink of an eye. The first time I saw you were still a child. Lu Tianyi sighed. Senior's appearance hasn't changed at all. Ancestor Tianyi, Senior Hongyan should stay here for now. We'll talk after I've dealt with the matters on my side, Lu Yin said. I understand. It's time to deal with some rascals, Lu Tianyi said in a low voice. Lu Yin suddenly thought of something. What about my father? Lu Qi doesn't know that you've died once. The news is completely sealed off outside of Zhongping. That's good. Lu Yin heaved a sigh of relief. Given his father's temper, if he found out about Lu Yin's death, he would definitely cause some trouble. More than 10 days after Hongyan Mavis ascended, a piece of news shook the entire Six Direction Society. Qingfen, this name once again appeared in everyone's ears. At the same time, a list of spies from the Hexagon Society appeared as well. There were a total of several hundred names on it. These names could be found all over the Hexagon Society, including the primordial space and the boundless battlefield. Among them, the most valuable were 5 names: Luo Shan, Wu Hen, Elder Chan, Wuxia, and 9th grade Lotus Venerable. 5 names represented 5 ancestor realm experts. Elder Zen was an extremely prestigious progenitor of the primordial spacetime sect and had followed Lu Yin for many years. Wuxia was Lu Yin's senior apprentice brother. Most importantly, there was even a 9th grade Lotus Venerable among them. Lotus Venerate was one of the reincarnation space and times 3 Venerates and 9 sages. Shaoyin Divinity was already a spy. If Lotus Venerate was also a spy, then the Great Heavenly Venerate would become the laughingstock of the Six Direction sect. It wasn't just the Grand Empyrean. Lu Yin was also a laughingstock. If Elder Chan and Wuxia were spies, then Lu Yin would not be able to escape responsibility. The list went round the world in a very short time. For a time, the Six Direction sect captured spies based on this list, and they did not miss a single one. The names on the list were indeed spies, and the moment these spies learned that the list had been leaked, they immediately fled. However, a small portion of them were still captured and many of them died. Only a few managed to escape. Of the 5 progenitors, Wu Hen had escaped. A progenitor from Mu Spacetime who had been guarding the endless battlefield all year round, had personally attacked Wu Hen. In the end, it was confirmed that Wu Hen was a spy, and the strength that he had displayed was definitely not what it seemed. At the same time, a Stargate had been discovered in the Lotus realm. It had been discovered by a Lotus Venerable disciple by accident. This matter had pushed Lotus Venerate to the forefront of everyone's attention. Could Lotus Venerate really be a spy? When they first met, Bao Saint and the other experts immediately headed to the Lotus realm to confront Lotus Venerate. If Lotus Venerate and Wu Hen were in trouble, then what about the other 3? In the primordial spacetime sect, Lu Yin's expression was calm. In front of him, Wang Wen was unusually serious. This matter is very serious. That list did not miss a single one, and those who escaped were confirmed to be spies. There were hundreds of spies and all of them were thrown out at once. The Eternals are really ruthless. Even I suspect that the list is not real. Lu Yin frowned. He had not expected the Eternals to be so ruthless as to sacrifice hundreds of spies. Their targets were obvious. First it was Elder Chan, Wuxia, Lotus Venerate and at most Luo Shan. Second it was the Above Heaven sect. If only those hundreds of spies had been spies, it would have been fine. Although there were many of them, they were actually of little value. The key was that Wu Hen had actually been a spy, which was something that Lu Yin had not expected. This person had first been controlled by Mr. Daheng, and in order to break free, he had secretly sided with Lu Yin. Lu Yin had even asked him to lead Mr. Daheng to cause trouble for Luo Shan. In the end, Lu Yin had punished Mr. Daheng by sending him to the endless battlefield. From beginning to end, Lu Yin had never suspected Wu Hen. This person's performance had been too perfect. It had been confirmed that he was a spy, and there was nothing more to say. What had truly pushed this matter to the peak was the discovery of the astral door in the Lotus Realm. This matter was like the straw that broke the camel's back, and it made the entire Six Direction Society believe that the list was real. If a grade 9 Lotus Venerate and Wu Hen were spies, then why weren't Elder Chan, Wuxia and Luo Shan? Were they more valuable than a grade 9 Lotus Venerate? In fact, even within the Above Heaven sect, there were many people who suspected Elder Chan and the others, which was why Lu Yin and the others had been so serious. Lies were 90% true and 1 false. Whether or not a lie could be verified depended on the value of the 90% truth. It had to be said that the Eternals had paid a huge price this time, at least in the eyes of outsiders. Elder Chan walked into the main hall with a calm expression. Sect Master, lock me up first. Otherwise, the Six Direction Society will not let this matter rest. At this moment, the reincarnation spacetime was confronting a grade 9 Lotus Venerate, and countless people in the Six Direction Society were shouting for the Above Heaven sect to purge the traitors. Many people had gathered outside the Above Heaven sect, waiting for their response. In their eyes, Lu Yin was already dead, so there was no need to be too afraid of the Above Heaven sect at this moment. No matter how many experts there were in the Above Heaven sect, they were not as intimidating as Lu Yin. This was because he did things differently from ordinary people and left no traces behind. Lu Yin looked up at Elder Chan. I can't let you suffer when I know you've been wronged. Elder Chan sighed. Sect Master, the Eternals want to use this matter to drive a wedge between the primordial space and the Six Direction Society. No matter what, capture me first. Me too. Wuxia had arrived. Even if they were on the list, the primordial space had never acted against them. It was not a blind trust, but only the people in the primordial space knew. Wuxia and Elder Chan could not be spies. How could a person who had established a humble class in the starry sky of trees and had been supported by the Lu family for so many years be a spy? If he was a spy, what was he after? Could his value be higher than Wang Fan's? Wuxia was all alone in the starry sky of trees. He did not have the power to contend against the four-direction scale and did not have the ability to influence the battlefield. Even if his progenitor strength was valuable, so many red-back spies should not be sacrificed for him. As for Elder Chan, it was even more impossible. If not for him, the Fifth Mainland would have been under the Eternals' control. Why would the Eternals hide Elder Chan and fight against them for so many years? It did not make any sense. Most importantly, even if Qingfen knew the list of spies, how could he say Elder Chan and Wuxia's names? How long had it been since the primordial space contacted the Six Direction Society? Why would the Eternals tell this to a mere Qingfen? Qingfen's role was to enter the Void God Spacetime's knowledge traveler stream. Lu Yin already knew this. The Eternals wanted to cut off the Above Heaven sect's foreign aid. Either the Above Heaven sect protect Elder Chan and Wuxia and break off relations with the Six Direction Society, or the Above Heaven sect deal with Elder Chan and Wuxia first. No matter how one looked at it, the Eternals would lose out. Senior brother, you and I know what this is about. We know even more about the Eternals' goal, Lu Yin said. Wuxia said, that's why we cannot fall into their trap. Lu Yin looked at Wang Wen. Wang Wen smiled at Wuxia and Elder Chan. Have you forgotten? This is what we wanted the Eternals to do. They took advantage of the fact that His Highness the chess piece is dead and went all out. Their goal is to deprive the primordial space of any foreign aid. If we don't let them succeed this time, they will do it again next time. Now that it has happened, the Eternals can't wait any longer. Elder Chan was worried. If there is discord, even if the Dao Lord steps forward, it won't be easy to expel the Eternals. Lu Yin looked outside the Above Heaven sect. Then let's see what kind of forces the Eternals will deploy. No matter how much they try to sow discord, those who can see the truth will still be able to see it clearly. Those who can't see the truth will still be unable to see it clearly. These exposed problems are what I need to solve next. The matter of the list continued to boil over. More and more Six Direction Society cultivators gathered outside the Above Heaven sect. They wanted the Above Heaven sect to capture Elder Chan and Wuxia and purge the entire Six Direction Society of spies. However, the Above Heaven sect remained unmoved. Over at the reincarnation spacetime, Lotus Sovereign's expression was gloomy. She had been forcefully awakened from her seclusion, and she was met with many pairs of suspicious eyes. She did not know how to explain why the Lotus realm had a Stargate, but to frame her as a spy based on a Stargate alone? Impossible. In the entire reincarnation spacetime, how many people could act against her? Those few people would not suspect her just because of a Stargate. In the endless battlefield, Zhou Xian ran away. When he heard about the list, he was the first to run. It was obvious that someone was up to something, and he did not want to become someone's stepping stone. As time passed, the Above Heaven sect still did not act against Elder Chan and Wuxia. More and more people from the Six Direction Society jumped out to criticize the Six Direction Society. They even mentioned that Yao Lan had been wrongly accused and had to be sent to the endless battlefield. Once again, they wanted the Above Heaven sect to apologize on Lu Yin's behalf. The most extreme ones even made the Above Heaven sect's ancestors kneel and apologize on Lu Yin's behalf. Thank you. QZQ4418 Baidu. Brother, thank you for your support. Be careful when you travel during National Day. We'll go on a business trip after National Day. Chapter 31:31. As soon as these words were spoken, countless people on the Fifth Mainland were enraged, and they all headed to the Six Paths Guild to find the person who had spoken those words. Even some members of Six Paths Guild felt that this was too much. The situation became more and more serious, and finally conflict erupted. Some cultivators of the Six Directions Guild and the cultivators of the Fifth Mainland came to blows. At this moment, numerous figures descended outside the sect of Heaven Above, bringing with them heavy pressure. The cultivators who had been surrounding the Above the Sky sect had been massacred. Within the sect, Lu Yin looked up. They were here. Dark red divine power surged, and with the human figures as the beginning, it covered the sky and covered the earth as it flew toward the Above Heaven sect. Following closely behind, the corpses were thrown out one after another. At the back, 3 figures faced the sect Above Heaven. Destroy this place completely. The red ribbon danced as Ji Luo slashed at the Above Heaven sect. The sword slashed past the corpses as if it wanted to split the entire Above Heaven sect into 2. Prison Flood Dragon and Ancestral Turtle immediately retreated. These 2 looked dumb, but they were smarter than anyone else. They knew they couldn't stop Ji Luo. Within the Above Heaven sect, the Permetha flower bloomed. The Underworld King appeared behind Big Sister and waved his hand to shatter the sword slash. Ji Luo raised his head and took a step forward. His silhouette disappeared. Suddenly, his silhouette reappeared and retreated rapidly. In front of him, a short blade was approaching him. It came from a person who was only 1 meter tall. It was the abandoned person. Back then, they had only supported the 9-star civilization during the Expedition of Calamity, and Lu Yin had teamed up with Yi Qin to kill their way into the second Calamity. Only the Forsaken Path had never been used, and his Stargate had always been stored in his cosmic ring and had not been destroyed. At this moment, Lu Yin had contacted the Abandoned Path in advance and asked him to take action at any time. Now the time had come. Ji Luo was extremely fast, and the power of his sword was astonishing. It felt as if he could break through anything with a single strike, but Abandoned Path was even stranger. Back then, Lu Yin had not been able to escape from Abandoned Path's dagger even when he had used a parallel timeline. Abandoned Path's strength was definitely on par with Ji Luo's. In the distance, a beam of light shot towards the Abandoned Path. Along the way, it was once again destroyed by Big Sister. She looked into the distance. Xiaoyin, it's you again. Reverend God Xiaoyin's eyelids twitched. Something wasn't right. This kind of attitude and the expert who could block Ji Luo didn't belong to the Above Heaven sect. The Above Heaven sect had already prepared for this. At the back, Di Qiong walked out and said, "It seems like the Above Heaven sect has been prepared for this. This battle is disadvantageous for us." Even so, the Eternals had paid a heavy price for this battle. They had sacrificed hundreds of spies. They couldn't let go of a single person who had abandoned them. Di Qiong raised his hand and a long spear appeared. He thrust it toward the Tianshang sect. He wanted to see who in the Tianshang sect could stop him. At the same time, the Starry Sky Tree, the Ancient God and the Forgotten Ruins deity arrived at Lu Tianjing. Their goal was to prevent Lu Yuan, Lu Tianyi and the other experts from assisting Above Heaven. News of the Above Heaven sect being attacked by the Eternals had spread to the Six Directions Guild, and the Wood God had come out. No matter what happened, the fact that they had to work together to deal with the Eternals was unchangeable. Just as he was about to enter the origin space, a figure appeared in front of him. His crimson hair danced in the wind. It was the Arrow God. In the same direction, a figure also appeared in front of the woodcut. It was Magician, a master who was qualified to participate in the Chosen One battle. In the Void God dimension, Black Wuxian appeared in front of the Void Master while Blue appeared in front of Void Wei. This was the divine commandment. The Eternals had gathered their strength to attack the humans. They didn't necessarily want to crush the humans as long as they could achieve their goal. In the eyes of the Eternals, Above Heaven did not have any experts who could fight against Di Qiong and Ji Luo. These two were the ones who had massacred Above Heaven. The executioners. As for the reincarnation dimension, Venerate Lotus was being watched. She couldn't even protect herself, let alone help Above Heaven. The Grand Celestial was still in seclusion and didn't care about the outside world. White Cloud City was still fighting against the primordial thunder locusts. Berserk corpses had appeared in the 5 spirit tribes in the Tri-Moons Alliance. Although the corpses in Zone 1 had been used up, there were still corpses in the other zones. No matter how few there were, they were enough to tire them out. Above Heaven had lost their foreign aid, so they could only rely on their own powerhouses. But how could these powerhouses stop Di Qiong? This was the Eternals' plan. Lu Yin walked out from Above Heaven. It was time. In fact, he didn't want to win this battle. He only wanted to destroy the Eternals' scheme and protect Above Heaven. The moment the Eternals attacked Above Heaven, they had already suffered great losses. They had created a situation where Above Heaven was isolated and without help. This kind of situation was very taxing even for the Eternals. But now it was enough. It would be perfect if he could get rid of 1 or 2 Eternals in this battle. Although Lu Yin's strength had changed, he wasn't arrogant. He knew how difficult it was to kill the 7 sky gods, but no matter how difficult it was, he still had to kill them. Di Qiong descended on Above Heaven. Qing Ping, Wuxia, Xiaochen and Elder Chan all appeared around him. Below him were Lu Yun, Xia Shenji, Wang Jian and Bai Sheng. There were 8 progenitors. Di Qiong looked around and said arrogantly, "Ants." He then stabbed his spear at Qing Ping. Qing Ping's trial during the Battle of the Eternal Kingdom had left a deep impression on him. Although it hadn't caused him any harm, he had used the rules to judge the rules. Evil Saraira appeared in front of Qing Ping. Wuxia pushed the Saraira towards Di Qiong, but it was pierced by the spear and shattered. Below him, streaks of flowing cloud-like energy formed a physical impact. 1,000 streams Dao break. Di Qiong didn't even look at it, allowing the streaks of cloud-like energy to bombard his body. They couldn't even stop him, and his spear continued to stab at Qing Ping. Lu Yun was shocked. Di Qiong was too strong. The difference was too great. They were all progenitors, but how could the difference be so great? They were like ants in front of Di Qiong. Xia Shenji gritted his teeth. He didn't want to act as Di Qiong was a monster. However, he couldn't hide at this moment, so he joined forces with Wang Jian and Bai Sheng to charge at Di Qiong. Their swords and staffs were broken by Di Qiong's spear, and his terrifying strength suppressed them all. "I'll fulfill your wishes if you want to die." Di Qiong's spear fell towards Xia Shenji and the others, including Lu Yun and Wuxia. They couldn't withstand this attack. At that moment, Lu Yin stepped out from the Above Heaven's sect and appeared behind Di Qiong. He clenched his fist and unleashed his boundless inner world. The lines of power collided with each other and Lu Yin's arm withered. When the power of his boundless inner world reached its limit, Lu Yin punched out. Boom! An earth-shattering punch landed on Di Qiong's back, causing his body to bend in the opposite direction. Then Lu Yin unleashed the full force of the attack, sending Di Qiong flying. Lu Yin could clearly feel his bones breaking. This punch was unprecedentedly heavy, and Fengbo didn't dare to take it head-on. Instead, it landed on Di Qiong's body. Di Qiong was stunned and he couldn't turn his body around. He was pushed far away by the unimaginable force. He couldn't believe that there was someone among the humans who could give him such a heavy blow. He wanted to turn around, but the terrifying force was still pressing down on him. If he tried to turn around, the injuries he suffered would worsen. Lu Yin stepped forward again and chased after Di Qiong, not giving him any time to breathe. Another punch landed, but this time it froze. Many pages appeared around Di Qiong, and one of the pages showed the scene of Lu Yin's punch landing. Lu Yin saw it and frowned. He had actually forgotten about it. Di Qiong saw it as well and his expression changed. Lu Yin turned his fist into a palm and hit Di Qiong. At this moment, Di Qiong finally recovered. He felt Lu Yin's palm landing on him, so he turned around and stabbed his spear at Lu Yin's palm. Lu Yin moved his palm sideways and hit Di Qiong along with the spear. Di Qiong looked at Lu Yin and his eyes suddenly changed. Lu Yin hit Di Qiong with his palm, and Di Qiong hit him with his left palm at the same time. The terrifying force of their palms tore the void apart, forming a huge void world. Di Qiong was shocked when Lu Yin was pushed back by Di Qiong's palm. How could this person's strength be comparable to his? How could this be? Before Lu Yin could react, Di Qiong took a step forward and stabbed his spear at Lu Yin. This attack was the same as before and it was easy to dodge, but Lu Yin instinctively felt the danger and retreated. Di Qiong's eyes were ferocious. I didn't expect you to survive, but it doesn't matter. I'll kill you now. The spear followed closely behind and its sharpness was unparalleled. Lu Yin used the reverse step to parallel time and went around to Di Qiong's side. He pointed at Di Qiong's head, and the tip of his finger was surrounded by an infinite inner world. Di Qiong's method prevented him from using the same attack a second time. His fist and palm were useless and this was the third attack. However, this attack was also useless. It was not the scripture but the sequence laws. Lu Yin could not see the sequence particles as he had lost his heaven's eye. His finger was supposed to be aimed at Di Qiong's head, but it mysteriously appeared below him. In an instant the reverse step stopped. Under the sequence laws, it was difficult to maintain the reverse step. Di Qiong held his spear, turned around and stabbed at Lu Yin's face. Lu Yin exposed the starry sky in his heart, which was repelled by spacetime and isolated by the void world. The spear pierced through the void world and stabbed at Lu Yin's starry sky. At this moment the land in Lu Yin's heart crashed into the spear. There was a tremor and Di Qiong was pushed back by a huge force. His spear shattered and he looked at the land in front of him in shock. How was this possible? This was the land where Lu Yin had suppressed Fengbo. Although he had not used the wordless heavenly book to increase the number of living beings, he had been very close to killing Fengbo. This attack was also meant to test Di Qiong's strength. Di Qiong's strength was definitely not below Fengbo's. He had been very close to suppressing Fengbo, but he had been far from being able to hit Di Qiong. Lu Yin felt that it was a pity, but Di Qiong's shock was indescribable. How long had it been since they last met? How could this brat have the strength to fight against him? Impossible. How could this be? This brat was only a demi-ancestor. The land in front of Di Qiong continued to crash into him. Although it could not kill him, it was enough to make him breathless. Di Qiong's eyes widened as pages of scriptures revolved around him. The land suddenly stopped, and the scene of the land crashing into him appeared on one of the pages. The same attack could not be used against Di Qiong a second time, no matter what power Lu Yin used. Chapter 31-32. Lu Yin had been through countless battles and had rarely felt so frustrated. Being unable to use the same attack twice was a huge limitation. This was Di Qiong's ancestral world, the martial god's scripture. Di Qiong formed a spear in his hand again and took a step forward, thrusting it towards Lu Yin. Lu Yin used the reverse step but it was instantly broken. It was the martial god's scripture again. As long as he was within the scripture's range he would not be able to use the same attack, be it the reverse step, palm strike or land strike. Die brat. Di Qiong's spear pierced through the void, bringing with it an unparalleled sharpness. Lu Yin exhaled and the consciousness star in his heart trembled. His majestic consciousness whizzed out and bombarded Di Qiong. Di Qiong's movements stopped abruptly and he exhaled deeply. His pupils dilated and he looked up at Lu Yin in disbelief. Is this the power of consciousness? Lu Yin was dizzy. It was not easy for him to use the power of consciousness, but what could he do against Di Qiong? The textless heavenly book, the land strike and the overturning sky palm were all unexpected attacks. If he used them now, the martial god scripture would only restrict him. What he needed to do was to force Di Qiong to use his trump card, and then use his trump card to kill everything. Di Qiong clenched his teeth and gripped his spear tightly. He stared at Lu Yin. This is Su Ji's consciousness. You have devoured his consciousness. Nonsense. Lu Yin shouted and bombarded Di Qiong with his consciousness again. This was the consequence of Lu Yin using the power of his consciousness. He had not completely digested Ruin's consciousness, and that consciousness had been accumulated over countless years. It was not something that Lu Yin could casually use. Even though he had spent a long time in the Mirage domain, that time was pathetically short compared to the time that Ruins had been alive for. If he really wanted to digest Suji's consciousness, he would have to memorize the martial god scripture during his time in the Mirage domain. However, Lu Yin obviously did not do that. Fortunately, Lu Yin's consciousness was as stable as a rock. Although he was injured, he was much better off than Di Qiong. Di Qiong had the martial god scripture, which could counter all attacks unless he killed with a single blow. However, his weaknesses were also obvious. The power of time and the power of consciousness were his weaknesses. The only thing Lu Yin lacked was the power to decide the outcome of the battle. Di Qiong clutched his head and howled in pain. Seizing the opportunity, Elder Chan and the others attacked Di Qiong at the same time. All kinds of attacks landed on Di Qiong. Di Qiong growled, "How long are you going to wait?" Lu Yin's eyes went wide. Was there someone else? He was certain that there was an expert hiding in the dark, and he could not afford to wait any longer. His gaze turned cold, and he waved his hand to summon the wordless heavenly tome. He wrote down Di Qiong's name, and in that instant, Di Qiong felt his strength rapidly drain away. His expression changed as he realized that he was being suppressed by this space-time. Originally, as long as he did not use his god power, he would not be suppressed. After all, he had never been to the origin space before. For example, the ancient god, the Forgotten Ruins deity, and the other 7 heavenly gods would be suppressed as long as they came. Therefore, the ones who attacked the Above Heaven sect were them. But now, Lu Yin was actually able to suppress them using space-time alone. Coupled with the power of his consciousness, the old man knew that there was nothing he could do to Lu Yin. Let's see who will take whose life. Lu Yin charged forward without hesitation, raising his left arm and striking out with a finger. As long as he did not use the same action, he would not be restrained by the martial god manual. Di Qiong had taken a punch from Lu Yin, and his body was still unnatural. The bombardment of his consciousness was giving him a headache, and his strength was constantly draining away. Without thinking, he tore through the void and left. Lu Yin wanted to keep him here, but it was unlikely that he would be able to do so. Di Qiong had not used his trump card yet, and the hidden danger was still lurking. He did not want to face the everlasting tribe head-on right now, as he had a way to defeat them. If only his understanding of Di Qiong was the same as his understanding of Fengbua. He might not be able to leave this battle alive. Di Qiong fled, as did the Shaoyin deity and Ji Luo. Without being able to surround and kill them, it would be difficult to keep them here. After all, they were all experts close to the 7 heavenly gods. Although Di Qiong and the others had left, the berserk corpses were still destroying the Above Heaven sect. Lu Yin took action and dealt with all the berserk corpses. The Above Heaven sect's crisis was resolved, and the hidden danger also disappeared quietly. Since the battle in the Above Heaven sect had ended, the battles in the Starry Sky Tree and the Six Direction Society naturally ended even faster. In the first zone of disaster, Di Qiong and the others gathered in front of the ancestor of the past. The ancestor of the past was surprised. Lu Yin is still alive? Is he very strong? Di Qiong's expression turned ugly. If his strength did not soar and he did not have the ability to fight me, I would not have retreated. He Wuxian said in a low voice, Lu Yin has indeed become a huge threat. It will be difficult to eliminate him now. The ancestor of the past looked at Ji Luo. You also encountered an opponent? Ji Luo's face was hidden under a straw hat, and his appearance could not be seen clearly. A person who uses a short knife as his weapon is always faster than me. Abandoned path. The arrow god was surprised. The ancestor of the past looked at the arrow god. You know him? He is on the divine commandment list. It seems like Lu Yin has gathered a lot of external help. This 3rd divine commandment is going to be troublesome. Ruins died just as it started, and 2 of the 7 heavenly gods have already died. The humans are constantly forming alliances. We have to think of a way to eliminate Lu Yin first. The ancestor of the past pondered. The battle in the Above Heaven sect ended very quickly, and the news of Lu Yin's return immediately spread throughout the Six Direction Society. Countless people were excited. Lu Yin was still alive, and many people saw the hope of defeating the everlasting race. After Lu Yin appeared, he immediately ordered a group of people to be arrested. These people were the ones who slandered the Above Heaven sect and wanted to split the origin space in the Six Direction Society. For a moment, many people in the Six Direction Society were ashen-faced. Lu Yin himself went to the Lotus Territory. There were some problems in the Lotus Territory. In the reincarnation space-time, the Lotus territory was still being watched by Zhou Xian and the others. Lu Yin was still alive and there was no direct connection between him and the name list. Whether Venerable Lotus was a spy or not was still to be investigated. Too many things had happened in a short period of time. The everlasting race caused the Six Direction Society to be filled with undercurrents. However, with Lu Yin's return, the crisis was instantly resolved. However, the authenticity of the name list had nothing to do with Lu Yin's return. On the name list, Luo Shan ran away, Wu Han was confirmed to be a spy, and the remaining hundreds of people were all spies. This made the name list extremely credible. Under such circumstances, even Venerable Lotus was unavoidably suspected by the reincarnation spacetime. With Divine Sovereign Shaoyin as a precedent, why couldn't Venerable Lotus be a spy? Zhou Xian and the others were gloomy. It should be a good thing to know who the spy was, but they definitely did not want it to be Venerable Lotus. This was not only because of her strength but also because she was one of the three Venerables. If Venerable Lotus was also a spy, the great Celestials would lose face. How would the reincarnation spacetime deal with the origin space? Fortunately, Venerable Lotus did not make any moves when the name list was exposed. She did not even move when the Above Heaven sect was attacked in the origin space. This made Zhou Xian and the others feel relieved. This meant that the possibility of Venerable Lotus being a spy was greatly reduced. Lu Yin arrived at the Lotus territory and everyone there bowed. Greetings, Master Lu. Greetings, Master Lu. Bao Saint also bowed. Greetings, Master Lu. Lu Yin landed and looked around. It's quite lively here. Zhou Xian, are you here to find a partner? The Lotus territory was very beautiful. It was shrouded in mist, and beautiful disciples of Venerable Lotus were everywhere. Zhou Xian had long put aside her prejudice against Lu Yin, and she admired him more and more. Without Lu Yin, the Six Direction Society would not be like this. Master Lu, you must be joking. We're here to prevent Venerable Lotus from being a spy. Lu Yin laughed. If she was a spy, would you be able to stop her? Zhou Xian fell silent. In fact, Lu Yin admired Zhou Xian as well. Not everyone could survive an attack from an ancient god or an attack from the archer god, but Zhou Xian had done so. His innate gift of 9 empty rooms was indeed difficult to deal with when one did not understand it. However, once one understood it, it was not difficult at all. Zhou Xian was able to break through 10 attacks at once. Within the Lotus territory, Venerable Lotus walked out with little Lian and Yao Lan beside her. She stopped in front of Lu Yin and bowed. Greetings, Master Lu. Greetings, Master Lu. Yao Lan and little Lian bowed. Lu Yin looked at Venerable Lotus. After dealing with the Above Heaven sect, I came to you first. Do you know why? Venerable Lotus' expression turned ugly. Because of that name list. Lu Yin clasped his hands behind his back. Wrong. Venerable Lotus was astonished. The others also looked at Lu Yin in confusion. Now, besides the Above Heaven sect capturing people everywhere, Venerable Lotus and the others were the focus of everyone's attention. Lu Yin looked at Venerable Lotus. I know that you are not a spy, just like how I trust Elder Chan and Senior Wuxia. Right, Luo Shan should not be one as well, but I am not sure. I still need to keep an eye on her. Master Lu, are you sure? Bao Saint asked. Lu Yin looked around. Exchanging the lives of hundreds of spies for 3 human progenitors. You have both status and strength. The everlasting tribe will not lose out in this transaction, right? Bao Saint wanted to say something but he did not. In the end, he was not qualified to argue with Lu Yin. Lu Yin had defeated Di Qiong, one of the 3 pillars and 6 seas, in the battle in the Above Heaven sect. His strength had undergone an earth-shattering transformation, and this news had spread throughout the Six Directions Society. He had truly reached a new height. Even progenitors would have to be careful with their words and actions in front of him. In the past, he had relied on his status and background. Now he relied on his strength. This was Lu Yin. Venerable Lotus smiled bitterly. Master Lu, you trust me so much that it makes me uncomfortable. Zhou Xian looked at Lu Yin. Actually, I don't believe that Venerable Lotus is a spy either. Then why have you come to the Lotus domain? Lu Yin looked at Yao Lan behind Venerable Lotus. Someone wants me to apologize to Yao Lan, accusing me of wronging her. So here I am. Yao Lan looked at Lu Yin helplessly and bowed slowly. It's just some meddlesome people making trouble. Please don't take it to heart. Venerable Lotus said, Master Lu, I have heard about this. The everlasting tribe must have contributed greatly. Lu Yin nodded. Yes, the everlasting tribe must have contributed greatly. But how do you know that this disciple of yours is not from the everlasting tribe? Venerable Lotus' expression changed as soon as he heard this. He stared at Yao Lan. Bao Saint and the others stared at Yao Lan. Lu Yin's voice was not soft and many of Venerable Lotus' disciples heard him. They were stunned. Yao Lan was from the everlasting tribe? Chapter 31-33. Yao Lan's brows furrowed as she met Lu Yin's gaze. There was anger in her calm gaze. Master Lu, I respect what you've done for the Six Paths Society, and I respect you for not doubting my master. But you've wronged me and I will not admit it. Lu Yin said indifferently, I don't need you to admit it. Just take them away. The void behind him split open and Leng Qing walked out, followed by a group of above heaven sect cultivators. We're here to capture Yao Lan, Qing Yin and Jiu. Dozens of names were read out. They were all Lotus Venerable's disciples. Lotus Venerable narrowed his eyes and looked at Lu Yin. Master Lu, what's the meaning of this? Capture them and bring them back for interrogation, Lu Yin said indifferently. Lotus Venerable suppressed his anger. This is the Lotus realm. So. Lu Yin didn't care. Lotus Venerable gritted his teeth. It's fine if you come to my Lotus realm to capture people, but what about the charges? You want to capture my disciples in public without telling me in advance? Aren't you insulting me? Lu Yin looked at Lotus Venerable. I'm already here to inform you. Lotus Venerable slowly clenched his fists. Fine. Even so, what are the charges of my disciples? Do you want to capture them just because of some rumors or a dispute of personal feelings? Lu Yin frowned. I've already said that Yao Lan is from the Eternal Tribe. Among your disciples, the ones who are the most active and keep provoking the above heaven sect disciples are very suspicious. Also, don't you think that the Stargate discovered in the Lotus realm is a scapegoat? Of course, Lotus Venerable knew that it was a scapegoat. This is a matter of the Lotus realm. You don't have to worry about it. As for Yao Lan, she's one of the 3 venerables and 9 saints of the reincarnation universe. Even if you want to capture her, you have to provide evidence. Otherwise, what will happen to the reincarnation universe's reputation? What will happen to the great heavenly venerables? Chujian also said, Master Lu, Yao Lan is one of the 9 saints. Regardless, please reconsider. Lu Yin's lips curled up. I'm here not only to capture people, but also to find the great heavenly venerables. It's good that she's here. I'll talk to her. If she doesn't come out, who in the reincarnation universe can stop me? Don't think that I don't know. When it was rumored that I died, the people in samsara time and space who spoke for me were the least, especially you 3 venerables and 9 saints. When the sect above heaven was in danger, did you ever think of supporting it? Even the Eternals didn't send anyone to stop you. Lotus Venerable, you're right. You should mind your own business. Even if my above heaven sect is destroyed, it has nothing to do with your reincarnation space-time. But I'm different from you. This 6 Direction Society's business is my business. Let alone a tiny Lotus realm, I'll even take care of the entire reincarnation space-time. Capture them. With a command, Leng Qing descended and waved her hand. Behind her, the cultivators of the celestial sect walked toward the Lotus realm to capture the people on the list. Within the Lotus realm, the disciples of Lord Lotus shouted angrily. They already had a conflict with the sect above heaven and it was very intense. Naturally, they would not allow the sect above heaven to take them away. Lotus Venerable 9th grade shouted, Master Lu, I've said it before. It's not that I don't want you to capture them, but you have to provide evidence. Don't go too far. She didn't know that Lu Yin had come here to deliberately cause trouble. Previously, Lotus Venerable 9th grade disciples had been the most active, but now, Lu Yin had actually demanded that Lotus Venerable 9th grade disciples apologize to Yao Lan. This had incurred the wrath of the entire primordial space. If they didn't suppress this anger, how could they face those who had spoken up for Lu Yin in the primordial space? This was clearly shielding Lu Yin. Moreover, the Eternals knew of Lu Yin's strength, while the 6 Direction Society had only heard rumors. Lu Yin wanted to use Lotus Venerable 9th grade to establish his might and let the 6 Direction Society truly witness his strength and fear it. First, he would prove Lotus Venerable 9th grade's innocence. This way, no matter what he did later, Lotus Venerable 9th grade wouldn't be able to hate him. As long as it was proven that Yao Lan was a spy, the resentment in Lotus Venerable 9th grade's heart would quickly dissipate. Instead, Lotus Venerable Ninth Grade would only have respect for Lu Yin, as if he was facing an exalted celestial. Lu Yin's gaze was cold. My words are the evidence. My presence here is my attitude. Chu Jian clenched his fists. This guy was really domineering. Bao Saint felt bitter. Who in the current Six Direction Society could suppress Lu Yin? Unless an exalted celestial came out of seclusion, even if Celestial Duke Triumphant was here, he would only support Lu Yin. Celestial Duke Triumphant admired Lu Yin too much. Lotus Venerable Ninth Grade was so angry that his entire body trembled. This was too much, too much. Master Lu, do you really think that there is no one in my Lotus realm? If you don't give me evidence, don't even think about taking my disciple away. Yao Lan stepped forward, her expression dark. Master Lu, Yao Lan, have also gone through life and death in the endless battlefield. You want to falsely accuse me of being a spy of the Eternals with just one sentence? Isn't that too laughable? My samsara spacetime will not agree to this. Chu Jian also said, Master Lu, if you can produce evidence, we will help you capture her. But if you can't, then please forgive my samsara spacetime for not allowing you to capture her as you wish. Lu Yin sneered. You can try to stop me. I hope that there are more people in this Six Direction Society who can stop me. Lotus Venerable Ninth Grade. Chu Jian and the other's heart sank. Was he going to make a move? Lu Yin's figure instantly disappeared, and when he reappeared he was already in front of Leng Qing. Above his head, a visualization of the starry sky appeared, and at the same time he released the starry sky in his heart. The void world was isolated and the visualized land overlapped. There was a tremor and the Lotus Realm rumbled. From a distance the Lotus Realm looked like a giant lotus platform, but at this moment the giant lotus petals around the lotus platform seemed to be suppressed by an invisible force. As the land descended, it suddenly suppressed the entire Lotus Realm. Lotus Venerable Ninth Grade was furious. Master Lu, you are too much. As she spoke, she opened her lotus and tried to block the land's suppression. Chu Jian, Bao Saint and Yao Lan all attacked at the same time. However, the moment they were suppressed by the land, they all vomited blood at the same time. They were shocked. What kind of power was this? Lu Yin had used this land to suppress Count of the Wind to the point of vomiting blood. Count of the Seven Sky Gods was far stronger than Chu Jian and the others. Although Lotus Venerable Ninth Grade was powerful, she had been heavily injured in several battles. Otherwise, her lotus would not have been so weak and cracked upon contact. Lotus Venerable Ninth Grade spat out a mouthful of blood, and the lotuses around her shattered. Her sequence laws frantically spread out in an attempt to suppress the land, but they were still suppressed by it. She could not believe that this was Lu Yin's current strength. He was clearly just a half-progenitor, so how could he be so strong? The entire Lotus Realm was suppressed by the land, and all of the Lotus Venerable disciples were sprawled on the ground, feeling as if doomsday had arrived. Lu Yin had easily suppressed the Lotus Realm by himself, and he had also suppressed 4 progenitors, including a powerhouse with sequence laws. Leng Qing's eyelids twitched. How could the Path Master be so strong? How long had it been? No one could have imagined that Lu Yin's strength in the Mirage domain had reached the level where he could fight against the 7 Sky Gods. Although he might not be able to kill one of them, it would not be easy for one of them to kill him. The land did not continue to descend and it continued to suppress the Lotus Realm, causing it to sink continuously. Water spread out and covered the entire Lotus Realm, submerging the Lotus Venerable disciples one by one. Lotus Venerable Ninth Grade had never felt so humiliated before. At the same time she felt an unprecedented fear towards Lu Yin. Just how strong was this person? The Bao Saint shouted, Master Lu, please have mercy. We are not your enemies. Lu Yin was unmoved and continued to suppress the Lotus Realm. He wanted to force Lotus Venerable Ninth Grade to speak. Yao Lan's face went pale and she looked at Lu Yin with fear and apprehension. How had this person discovered her? Lu Yin had not actually confirmed that Yao Lan was a spy. Logically speaking, the Eternals were secretly playing tricks, and not only did Yao Lan not suppress them, she even encouraged the Lotus Venerable disciples to force the Above Heaven sect to apologize to her. This in itself did not make sense. Besides, who else could have placed a Stargate in the Lotus Realm without being detected by Lotus Venerable Ninth Grade? He believed that Lotus Venerable Ninth Grade had her own suspicions as well, but she was still under suspicion, so she did not act against Yao Lan. Lu Yin's guess was correct. Lotus Venerable Ninth Grade was furious mostly because of Lu Yin, but also because she was unwilling to accept this outcome. She had guessed that she had been wrongly accused and perhaps it had something to do with Yao Lan. She had planned to act against Yao Lan after her suspicions had been cleared, but she had not expected Lu Yin to arrive at the Lotus Realm first, causing her to lose all face. The land continued to suppress the Lotus Realm, and the Lotus Realm was only supported by Lotus Venerable Ninth Grade Yao Lan, First Jian and Bao Saint. They kept coughing up blood, unable to support the land. A sigh was heard. Master Lu, please calm down and let the Lotus Realm go. Leng Qing looked over. Xing. Although Xing was one of the 9 sages, his status in the reincarnation spacetime was special, and the 3 venerables would not act impudently in front of him. His seniority was second only to the Grand Empyreans. All right, I'll give Xing face, Lu Yin said calmly. Xing was one of the few venerables and 9 sages in the reincarnation spacetime who spoke on behalf of the Above Heaven sect. The land disappeared. Lotus Venerable Ninth Grade and the others sighed in relief. Leng Qing took a step forward and arrived beside Yao Lan. Let's go. Yao Lan gritted her teeth, feeling even more unresigned. In truth, after learning that the Eternals had retreated, she had intended to leave as soon as possible, but she had been a step too late. Lotus Venerable Ninth Grade had seen Leng Qing attack Yao Lan, but he had been unable to stop her. He could only watch as Leng Qing led the others to capture Lotus Venerable's disciple. Even Bao Saint had been unable to stop Leng Qing. Just as Lu Yin had said, how many people in the Six Direction Society could stop him? Master Lu, why are you so angry? Xing sighed. Lu Yin looked at Lotus Realm. There's nothing to be angry about. There are some things that must be done. Master Lu came to meet the Grand Empyrean? Xi asked. Lu Yin looked at him. That's right. Let me lead the way. Xing was helpless. Lu Yin wanted to meet the Grand Empyrean, and if he did not lead the way, Lu Yin would use all sorts of methods to force the Grand Empyrean out. This would not be the first time. Lu Yin was famous for being overbearing, but the Grand Empyrean could not do anything to him. It was not only because he was afraid of the Lu family, but also because no one knew the reason. They only knew that no matter how dissatisfied the Grand Empyrean was with Lu Yin, he would not act against him. This was publicly acknowledged by the Six Direction Society. Lu Yin left Lotus Realm, but before he left he glanced at Lotus Venerable Ninth Grade and left behind a sentence. If anyone dared to obstruct the Above Heaven sect, they would all be captured. Lotus Venerable Ninth Grade spat out another mouthful of blood and returned to his seclusion area. On the way to meet the Grand Empyrean, Xing shook his head. Master Lu did that on purpose. Is he trying to establish his might? Lu Yin bluntly said, you can say that. Venerable Lotus is not a bad person. It has nothing to do with me. Yao Lan, are you really a spy? Perhaps. Chapter 31-34. Xing was stunned by Lu Yin's reply. I thought Master Lu was certain that she was a spy. Lu Yin replied, it's just a reasonable guess. What if she isn't? Lu Yin looked at Xing. She isn't, then she isn't. What will happen? Xing wanted to say something, but in the end he could only laugh bitterly. Yes, what would happen? Apologize. That was impossible. If anyone dared to ask Lu Yin to apologize, countless people would do it on his behalf. Lu Yin was still alive and no one dared to be presumptuous. Even the Eternals had chosen to act when Lu Yin might die. This was Lu Yin's influence. Sometimes one had to be tough. Yao Lan had indeed fought in the endless battlefield and contributed to humanity, but that could not cover up her mistakes. It was her fault for not stopping Venerable Lotus disciples from provoking the Above Heaven. If Lu Yin had not returned, this matter would have escalated. She had to pay the price for her mistake. With Xing leading the way, Lu Yin met Grand Empyrean. When he saw the Grand Empyrean was shocked. Boy, your strength? Lu Yin was solemn. What happened to Shaoyin divinity? If you don't explain, I'll find time to kill him. While Lu Yin was meeting Grand Empyrean, biting of Xing's heart was burning. He had first heard that the Above Heaven had been attacked by the Eternals, and he had felt a sense of schadenfreude. Then he heard that Lu Yin had returned and defeated Di Qiong alone. The stun biting. Wasn't Lu Yin dead? Why was he back? He immediately sent someone to the origin space to investigate. The news sent chills down his spine. Lu Yin had returned alive. He was not dead. This news sent him into the abyss. Not dead. Not dead. Bidding stood in Yixing's headquarters in the rotting god universe and stared blankly outside. Lu Yin was not dead? This was troublesome, big trouble. Not long after, another piece of news arrived. Lu Yin had gone to cause trouble for Venerate Lotus, and he had suppressed Venerate Lotus's Lotus realm all by himself. He had suppressed Venerate Lotus, Yao Lan, Chu Jian and Gong Xing to the point where they could not even raise their heads. He had even captured a group of Venerate Lotus's disciples, including Yao Lan, who was a progenitor. Bai Ting felt a chill run down his spine. After the crisis was resolved, Above Heaven's sect had already gone to the Six Paths Society to capture many people. Now even Yao Lan was captured, and she was captured right in front of a 9th-level revered lotus in the lotus domain. Bai Ting didn't think that Yao Lan was a spy or anything like that. He only thought that Lu Yin was taking revenge on Venerable Lotus disciple for provoking the above heaven. If the disciples of Lord Lotus were like this, then what would happen to him? He had fired Lu Fuxue and said that he would never hire her again. Now that Lu Yin had returned, what should he do? What to do? Quick, tell Bailan to come see me. Bidding was anxious. Bailan quickly arrived, and her expression was not good. She was Yixing's subordinate, and she was happy to hear that Lu Yin had returned. Lu Yin had led the humans to many victories against the Eternals, and he was a hero to humanity. But what about Yixing? Yixing could be considered to have offended the above heaven sect. Seeing Bailan's arrival, Bai Ting suppressed his nervousness and said in a hoarse voice, "Have you heard about Lu Yin? No, Master Lu?" Bailan looked at him with disdain. He had been calling Lu Yin to fire Lu Fuxue, and now that Lu Yin had returned, he was calling him Master Lu again. She didn't think that this person was so disgusting. Only then did she remember that this person was only Lord Birong's servant, and not Yixing's real master. "I've heard." Bailan's voice was calm. Bai Ting looked at her, his eyes were filled with nervousness and anxiety, but he forced himself to look calm. "What do you mean?" Bailan pretended to be confused. "What do you mean?" Bai Ting said, "About Lu Fuxue." "Lu Fuxue? Wasn't she fired? What does it have to do with us?" Bailan said bluntly. Bai Ting was irritated and his tone became more anxious. "Master Lu is back and he is not dead. Lu Fuxue is his subordinate and we fired her. How are we going to explain it to Master Lu?" Bailan corrected, "It's not us, it's you. You fired Lu Fuxue and said that you would never hire her again. It has nothing to do with me or anyone else in Yixing." Bai Ting gritted his teeth. "Nothing to do with you? Don't forget you are Yixing's subordinate too. If Master Lu destroys Yixing, you and I will not be able to escape. Also, why didn't you stop me? When I fired Lu Fuxue, you could have stopped me, but you didn't. You want to fire her too, don't you? You are an accomplice." Bailan was furious. "Don't talk nonsense. I tried to stop you, but you didn't listen." Bai Ting stared at Bailan, his gaze ferocious. "In short, if Master Lu really wants to destroy Yixing, you and I will not be able to escape. To tell you the truth, Lord Birong has gone missing." He regretted it as soon as he finished. How could he say it? Bailan was shocked. "What did you say? Lord Birong has gone missing?" Bai Ting took a deep breath and his eyes flashed. Bailan asked, "Is it true? Is Lord Birong really gone missing?" Bai Ting sighed, nodded and said in a low voice, "Yes, Lord Birong went missing a long time ago." "Why didn't you say it?" "How? If I said it, would Yixing still be alive?" Bailan's face was pale and she was in a daze. Bai Ting said, "Actually, the first one to notice Lord Birong's disappearance was not me, it was the Lightning Master. Lord Birong has been in seclusion for too long, and the Lightning Master sensed that something was wrong. He went in to check, but Lord Birong was nowhere to be found. The Lightning Master searched for Lord Birong for a long time, but he couldn't find him, let alone us." He looked at Bailan. "Lord Birong has gone missing and we have lost the right to talk to the White Cloud City. The Lightning Master might help us once out of respect for Lord Birong, but he can't help us too much. This is also the reason why I didn't ask for help from the White Cloud City, and now it's hard to ask for help. This is my fault, but we have to get through this or else Yixing will be finished. You should know what kind of person Master Lu is. He didn't even let the Lotus Realm go. How could he let Yixing go?" "Bailan, I'm finished. Yixing is finished and so are you. Do you know that?" Bailan looked at Bai Ting in a daze. "What do you want me to do? It has already happened and no one can stop Master Lu from doing anything. Not even the entire Six Direction Association. Bai Ting felt powerless and sat down. That's right, no one can stop Master Lu, and he was actually counting on Bailan. Although Bailan and Lu Yin knew each other, their relationship wasn't that good, and they could only be considered as familiar strangers. What right did she have to stop Lu Yin from doing something? After a long silence, Bailan turned around and left. Bai Ting looked at her. What are you doing? Bailan didn't even turn around. I'm going to look for Lu Fuxue. Look for her? Bai Ting's eyes flashed and he looked at Bailan in confusion. Bailan said, who else can I look for besides her? If she doesn't complain to Master Lu, we might still be saved. Bai Ting's eyes lit up. That's right, look for Lu Fuxue and ask her to come back. We will agree to any conditions as long as she is willing. Bailan felt bitter. Come back? It was easy to say, but she remembered Lu Fuxue's expression when she left Yixing and what she said. Turned out that she was right. This also meant that she had already thought of what to do next and was just waiting for Yixing to come to her. What a joke. Bai Ting actually thought that he could turn the situation around, but he didn't know what was waiting for him. In the Above Heaven sect, Lu Yin had been staying in the back mountain ever since he returned from the reincarnation space-time, thinking about what the Grand Heavenly Venerate had said. If the Grand Heavenly Venerate's plan on Divine Sovereign Xiaoyin was really successful, it would play a key role in the war against the Eternals. It all depended on how it was done. From the looks of it, Divine Sovereign Xiaoyin's position was very important. In fact, one of the reasons why Lu Yin didn't suspect Lotus Venerate was because she knew that the Grand Heavenly Venerate had set up something on Divine Sovereign Xiaoyin to deal with the Eternals. If she was a spy, Divine Sovereign Xiaoyin wouldn't have survived until now. No matter how confident the ancestor of the past and the others were, they didn't dare to say that they could ignore the Grand Heavenly Venerate's plan. Yao Lan and the other disciples of Lotus Venerate were brought to the Above Heaven sect. Although Yao Lan didn't admit that she was a spy, it didn't matter. The mistakes she had made during this period were enough for the Above Heaven sect to lock her up. In addition to Lotus Venerate's disciples, hundreds of thousands of people from the Six Direction sect were captured in the parallel universes. Most of these people were instigated by the spies to make things difficult for the primordial space during this period. Of course, those who were bewitched were also dissatisfied with the primordial space. Otherwise, why wouldn't the others be bewitched? After these people were captured, the Six Direction sect became much quieter. The greatest value was the name list that Qingfen had provided. Hundreds of spies had been exposed, and this was a huge gift that would allow Lu Yin to come back from the dead. If the Eternals hadn't thought that these spies could be exchanged for the destruction of the Above Heaven sect, they wouldn't have exposed themselves. Although these hundreds of spies didn't have high cultivations, they were very useful. The Above Heaven sect itself had more than 10 spies, and these spies allowed the Above Heaven sect to be constantly monitored by the Eternals. After these spies were eliminated, the entire Six Direction sect became much cleaner. As for Lu Yin himself, his prestige was even higher now. He had challenged Di Qiong alone, suppressed the Lotus Realm with a single hand, and made it difficult for Lotus Venerate to resist him. The prestige that came with this strength was superimposed on the prestige that he once had, which gave Lu Yin absolute authority in the Six Direction sect. The time had come. Behind Lu Yin, Wei Rong walked over. Pathmaster, we can begin at any time. Lu Yin looked into the distance. The Eternals did it once and we will do it again. However, I do not wish to repeat the Eternals' failure. Wei Rong was confident. This subordinate will not have any problems, but the key is still those few people. As long as Pathmaster can convince them, everything will fall into place. Lu Yin looked at Wei Rong. Then let's begin. Let me see the results of these past few years. Understood. Wei Rong withdrew. Ever since the primordial space had come into contact with the Six Direction sect, Wei Rong had been given a mission. Just like when he had come into contact with the cosmic trees, he had constantly sent people to infiltrate every corner of the Six Direction sect. His goal was to control the direction of public opinion. This was not to be underestimated, as a large part of Lu Yin's current prestige came from this. Otherwise, even if he had led the Six Direction sect to suppress the Eternals, his prestige would not have accumulated so quickly. However, what he had done so far had only been a small test, and it was time for him to show his true worth. A few days later, a voice spread throughout the Six Direction sect at an extremely fast speed. The speed at which this voice spread was not any slower than the speed at which the Eternals had created conflicts. In fact, it was even faster. Some people in the Six Directions sect who heard this voice did not dare to contain it.